Chapter 166. Before Lu Leking could answer, 5 shadows suddenly appeared under Boiwanhu's coffin. They each held an unknown spherical object in their hands, then raised it up and pressed it against the bottom of Boiwanhu's coffin. Then, 5 pitch-black streams of ink gushed out of the spherical objects and wrapped around Boiwanhu's coffin like 5 tentacles. At the same time, Boiwanhu's coffin lit up with a pale golden light, but it was suppressed by the ink streams as soon as it appeared. Boiwanhu's corpse began to tremble all over, and the black mist around him quickly faded. He let out an unwilling roar and swung his heavy sword down. However, the 5 streams of ink were so tough that they were not cut in half. This series of changes was unexpected to everyone, especially Lu Lecheng. His expression changed abruptly as he shouted, "Quick, stop them. Otherwise, we'll all die." "Ha ha ha, it's too late." The 5 demonic cultivators laughed. At this time, the black mist around Boiwanhu's body was very little, and his aura was rapidly weakening. At the same time, the whole tomb began to tremble slightly. The trembling was getting more and more intense. Clanking noises could be heard from the chains in the tomb. Soon after, specks of light blossomed from the iron pillars that were connected to the chains. The light extended along the chains, and in the blink of an eye, all the chains were covered in a layer of light. An extremely complicated array appeared on the floor of the tomb. At the center of the array was Boiwanhu's coffin. At this time, the ground there was constantly moving up and down, as if something was about to rush out. Ling Shiqi opened his supercilious eye. Although he still could not see what was under the array, he could see that the spiritual power of the array was slowly weakening. In other words, the array would not last long, and the thing that had been suppressed by Boiwanhu for more than 300 years would soon break free. Ling Shiqi already had plans to retreat. Unfortunately, just as he was about to leave, Boiwanhu's corpse suddenly stabbed his heavy sword into the coffin, transferring all the black mist on his body into it. The iron pillars suddenly spread out, and the layers of chains danced in the air, surrounding the entire tomb. Even the door behind them was shut with a loud bang. Ling Shiqi was standing next to the door. He was 1 step away from leaving this place, but he was still 1 step too late. His expression changed slightly, and he immediately executed the hand of the earth with the intention of burrowing through the ground. However, to his surprise, he was actually unable to soften the ground here. Ling Shiqi's heart couldn't help but sink. But on second thought, with such a complicated array formation, it was reasonable for the hand of the earth to fail. However, this was the first time he had encountered such a situation. The hand of the earth could be said to be the most comprehensive spiritual technique he had developed. It could be used to attack, retreat, and escape. Especially the earth burrowing technique, which he loved to use the most. Who would have thought that he would suffer a setback today? Escape? There was no escape now. Ling Shiqi could only let go of this thought. Next, he had to think about how to survive. If we kill them now, we still have a chance to stop it from breaking out of the array. Lu Leking hurriedly shouted, and then he rushed over without a care for his own safety. He was also a spiritual pulse realm expert. Although he was not young, his body was very agile. He jumped over countless chains and quickly approached the 5 demonic cultivators. Yu Jinyu and Luo Xiuwen knew that things were serious and followed closely behind. Ling Shiqi looked at the 5 demonic cultivators with a cold expression in his eyes. He held 2 scimitars behind his back and rushed over like a jaguar. At this time, almost all the spirit cultivators in the spirit transformation realm attacked the 5 demonic cultivators. Seeing this, the demonic cultivators laughed even more arrogantly. The aura on their bodies suddenly increased by several times. It turned out that they were all in the spiritual pulse realm. It was just that they had used some method to hide their cultivation. At this time, 90% of the people suddenly stopped. That was a total of 5 spiritual pulse experts. Wouldn't they be courting death if they rushed up again? Thus, only 6 figures continued to rush toward them. They were Lu Leking and the other 2 spiritual pulse realm experts, Zhong Lin, Go Huarong, and Ling Shiqi. Lu Lecheng's eyes flashed and he shouted, "Don't be afraid, they are suppressing Boiwanu's corpse with all their strength. They can't move at all. Hearing this, some of the people who stopped gritted their teeth and continued to rush over, while some remained where they were. In the blink of an eye, Lu Lekeng and the other two were the first to get close. Lu Lekeng held a disc in his hand. At this time, purple spirit inscriptions burst out from the disc and formed a small array in front of him. He pressed the disc on the ground, and the purple spirit inscriptions immediately spread out and surrounded the 5 demonic cultivators. Then, Lu Lekeng sat cross-legged and said, "I will maintain the little thunder cloud array to limit their strength. I'll leave the rest to you." As soon as he finished speaking, a purple lightning bolt as thick as a finger shot out from the little thundercloud array. Because the 5 demonic cultivators had to hold the ball-shaped object with one hand to suppress Boiwanu's corpse, they could not move. This lightning bolt directly hit one of them, causing him to tremble. Then, the second lightning bolt began to brew. At this time, Eugeniu clapped her hands, and 2 huge palm shadows that could be seen with the naked eye whizzed out. Luo Xiaowen used his brush as a sword and stabbed out an extremely thin ink-colored sword light. Go Huarong and Zhong Lin actually joined hands to attack one of them for the first time. Leng Shiqi suddenly unsheathed his dual blades. The moment they were unsheathed, the 2 blades bloomed with a glaring purple blade light. The blade light was like a crescent moon, cold and sharp as it slashed toward the last demonic cultivator. Just as their attacks were about to hit them, the demonic cultivators suddenly stomped, and a terrifying demonic aura rose from their feet to protect them. Eugenu's palms continuously twisted the demonic aura, but Luo Xiaowen's sword light pierced through the demonic aura. Unfortunately, the demonic cultivator he aimed at was already prepared, and the sword only pierced his arm. Go Huarong and Zhong Lin's joint attack was completely blocked by the demonic aura, and it did not even tremble. As for Leng Shiqi, he slashed out 2 crescent light slashes at the same time. The 2 crescent light slashes crisscrossed and landed on the demonic aura, causing it to weaken a lot. After a few breaths, the crescent light slashes forcefully exhausted a large amount of demonic aura, but the blade light itself also consumed a large amount of spiritual power and finally dissipated into nothingness. But even so, the others were still shocked, especially the 3 spiritual pulse realm cultivators, who knew the power of the demonic aura the best. This unremarkable little old man could actually force the demonic aura to this extent, which was really beyond their expectations. Chapter 167. In terms of pure offensive power, Leng Shiqi's 2 blade rays were only slightly weaker than Eugenu's. It had to be known that Eugeniu was at the spirit pulse realm, but Leng Shiqi was only at the 6th level of the spirit transformation realm. Looking at his attire, he didn't look like someone from a spirit cultivation sect. They didn't expect a small rogue cultivator to have such strength. Go Huarong couldn't help but widen his eyes. He was the one who brought Leng Shiqi here. He had always thought that Leng Shiqi was just an ordinary rogue cultivator who obtained the map by luck and never took him seriously. He even wanted to kill Leng Shiqi. Now that he saw how strong Leng Shiqi was, Go Huarong was glad that he didn't make a move against Leng Shiqi. Otherwise, he might have been the one to die. Seeing this, Zhong Lin secretly said, "So it's him." That day, when Leng Shiqi tried to assassinate Bao Pingyi, he and Chu Xinran had secretly seen a few shocking saber lights from afar, which were exactly the same as what was happening now. Therefore, Zhong Lin knew that Leng Shiqi was Bao Pingyi's killer. Although Lu Lucheng was a little surprised, he was still maintaining the formation and couldn't pay too much attention to it. Immediately after, 2 more purple lightning bolts shot out from the formation. Moreover, it hit the person who was injured just now. The devil cultivator immediately spat out a mouthful of blood, but his face revealed a crazy smile. "Ha ha ha, it's out, it's out, it's out, just wait for your death." "Not good," Lu Lucheng suddenly shouted. Just as he finished speaking, all the formations on the ground shattered. The iron pillars and chains flew out in all directions, killing countless people. The scene suddenly became chaotic. Leng Shiqi relied on the spirit steps to nimbly retreat, dodging one iron pillar and chain after another. During this process, he saw a huge palm break out of the ground. The 5 devil cultivators all retreated, no longer paying attention to Bo Yuenho's corpse, because at this time, the corpse's aura was abnormally low. The giant hand continued to stretch out, revealing a thick, pitch-black arm. When the arm came into contact with Bo Yuenho's coffin, it suddenly moved and sent Bo Yuenho's corpse and the coffin flying with a slap. At this time, some people also noticed that the coffin was empty. There was nothing inside. The gold and silver treasures, heavenly materials and earthly treasures, cultivation methods and spiritual techniques, and high-grade spiritual artifacts that they had imagined were all nowhere to be found. It turned out that this was an empty tomb. However, at this moment, no one was thinking about this. They were only thinking about how to survive. After the huge arm overturned the coffin, the ground began to crack, as if a huge monster was about to break out of the ground. Boom! With a loud bang, countless tiles on the ground exploded as if they were swept away by a hurricane. Then, a pillar of monstrous devil chi gushed out from the ground, and a huge body that was more than 20 feet tall was faintly discernible in the devil chi. The 5 devil cultivators all revealed crazed and fanatical expressions. Black Fiend Demon Corpse. The Black Fiend demonic corpse has finally appeared. It's ours. However, before they could finish speaking, the thing that they called the Black Fiend demon corpse directly slapped them. The demonic corpse's attack revealed a terrifying aura that far exceeded the spirit pulse realm. But strangely, the 5 devil cultivators did not reveal the slightest bit of panic. It was as if all of this was within their expectations. The devil chi around each of them flashed, and the 5 of them strangely dodged the Black Fiend demon corpse's attack. Moreover, they spread out in 5 directions to surround it. Then, each of them took out a small, light golden needle. With a flick of their fingers, the golden needle ignored the devil chi around the Black Fiend demon corpse and shot into its body. The needle was very small, not even as thick as the Black Fiend demon corpse's hair. But it was this small golden needle that caused the terrifying Black Fiend demon corpse to howl in pain. Then, with the golden needle as the center, countless golden runes quickly spread out. These runes covered more than half of its body like a seal. One of the devil cultivators shouted, "Even if it's your 1,000-year-old Black Fiend demon corpse, you still want to cause trouble in front of us. Obediently kneel down and accept your submission." This series of huge changes made everyone a little dumbfounded. Blood flowed from the corner of Lu Lecheng's mouth. His eyes were filled with shock as he muttered, "Golden thread fiend needle. How could they have such a treasure? Who are they?" One of the devil cultivators said, "You don't deserve to know our identity. You only need to know that you don't disturb us. Bo Yuenho sacrificed a lot to suppress this Black Fiend demon corpse. Our goal this time is to subdue this demonic corpse and prevent it from causing trouble in the world. This can also be considered a good karma. I think Bo Yuenho's spirit can rest in peace now. We can forget about the matter of you attacking us just now." Ling Shiqi could not help but frown. Only now did he finally understand that Bo Yuenho sacrificed himself to suppress this 1,000-year-old Black Fiend demon corpse. And from the beginning to the end, there were no treasures in this tomb at all. The most precious thing was naturally the Black Fiend demon corpse. The 5 devil cultivators came for it, but to Ling Shiqi and the others, it was not a treasure, but a ghost that could take their lives. Ling Shiqi also felt a little sullen. In the end, it was like drawing water with a bamboo basket. He did not get anything and wasted so much time. The others were even more unwilling. It was these devil cultivators who played them like monkeys. Now, they did not get any benefits and had to watch helplessly as the devil cultivators sealed the demonic corpse. Did they treat them like air? However, at this time, the Black Fiend demon corpse suddenly changed. Under the suppression of the golden thread fiend needle, the Black Fiend demon corpse could not move. The 5 devil cultivators took out many miscellaneous things and arranged a formation, as if to subdue the demonic corpse. At this moment, a pure black chi suddenly gushed out from the top of the demonic corpse's head. The black chi transformed into the same appearance as the demonic corpse, but it was much smaller, only as tall as a child. After this black chi appeared, the 5 devil cultivators immediately showed a look of horror and shouted in unison, "Demonic spirit? This black fiend demon corpse actually gave birth to a demonic spirit." Ha ha ha. The demonic spirit laughed crazily, but its voice was abnormally sharp, piercing people's ears and causing incomparable pain. Leng Shiqi hurriedly circulated his spirit energy to resist and felt a little better. He did not know what a demonic spirit was, but he knew that things had changed again. Sure enough, after the demonic spirit finished laughing, it suddenly turned into a ghostly shadow and pounced into the crowd of city guards. Wherever it passed, everyone's eyes rolled back and they fell to the ground. When it flew over Zhonglin's head, it paused for a moment, then entered Zhonglin's body. Ah! Zhonglin let out a horrifying scream. His body began to twist strangely, his eyes turned pitch black, and his entire body was covered with dense demonic patterns. The aura on his body also rose wildly, and in the blink of an eye, it was comparable to the spiritual pulse realm. Zhonglin looked around and smiled evilly. He raised the large sword beside him and began to slaughter the city guards like a tiger entering a flock of sheep. This feeling is still more fascinating. Seeing this, the 5 devil cultivators could no longer remain calm. They were still maintaining the formation to subdue the demonic corpse, so they had no time to deal with the demonic spirit. The demonic spirit was slaughtering the city guards, but suddenly, with a poochie sound, his arm exploded by itself. A weak body, this is not bad. After Zhonglin said this, his body fell limply. The demonic spirit reappeared and charged directly at a person. That person was Leng Shiqi. Chapter 168. Leng Shiqi cursed his bad luck when he saw the demon spirit rushing toward him. He immediately gathered all his spiritual power and a faint black aura rose from his feet. He used the ethereal spirit steps and floated away. However, the demon spirit was even faster. Leng Shiqi had just dodged and was about to dodge a second time, but the demon spirit was already in front of him. He did not catch the demon spirit's shadow at all and was stopped by it. Then, the demon spirit entered Leng Shiqi's body just like before. Leng Shiqi only knew that his vision turned black and he lost consciousness. Ha ha ha, Leng Shiqi laughed softly. Your physical body is not bad. Then, dense black demonic patterns appeared all over Leng Shiqi's body. Unlike before, the demonic patterns were still squirming slightly this time. His aura was even stronger and was comparable to the late stage of the spiritual pulse realm. Boom! Immediately, Leng Shiqi was wrapped in a dense demonic aura and crashed into the crowd of Luo Yu Manor disciples like a cannonball. Luo Xuan's expression changed greatly. Unfortunately, he cultivated very delicate spiritual techniques and was not good at such a fierce battle. He could only use all his strength to pull the 2 closest disciples away. However, the remaining disciples of the spiritual transformation realm could not stop Leng Shiqi. He spread his arms and the demonic aura around him formed sabers, halberds, spears, and other weapons and smashed them down. The disciples of Luo Yu Manor had never seen such a battle before and were already panicking. They could not withstand a single blow from Leng Shiqi. Pft, pft, blood gushed out from the crowd and limbs flew everywhere. Leng Shiqi wiped the blood stains on his hand and put it in his mouth. Delicious. It's your turn next. Leng Shiqi smiled coldly and locked his gaze on the 5 demonic cultivators who were still subduing the black fiend demon corpses. The 5 people's expressions immediately darkened. They were at the critical moment of sealing the demonic corpse, and if they were interrupted, it would mean that all their efforts would be for naught. Once their seal failed and the devil spirit returned to the black fiend demonic corpse, everyone in the tomb would die. Of course, that included them as well. Stop him. Stop him. One of the demonic cultivators shouted, but the others just dispersed and ignored him. In the beginning, it was these few people who were playing tricks. Otherwise, why would this black fiend demonic corpse be released? Now that there was a problem and they couldn't handle it, they thought of other people. Another devil cultivator frowned and said in a deep voice, "Everyone, I am Su Lu. The array left behind by Marquis Boyuan is already an arrow at the end of its flight after more than 300 years. Otherwise, how could the 5 of us release the Black Fiend Devil Corpse so easily? Even without us, the Black Fiend demonic corpses will break out of the formation in a few years. And the purpose of our trip this time is to completely seal the Black Fiend Devil Corpse, so as to prevent it from causing an irreversible disaster. Now, we only need you to delay this monster for a moment. Once we seal its body, it will be time to kill the devil spirit. After Su Lu finished speaking, he looked at Luo Xiuwen, Yu Jinyu, and Lu Lekeng. Now, only the 3 of them could stop Ling Shiqi. These 3 people were the upper echelons of the spirit cultivator sect. Naturally, they knew that if the lips were gone, the teeth would feel cold. Although they were very unhappy about being used by the devil cultivators, they did not want to die even more. At this time, the 3 of them finally stood up. Ling Shiqi tilted his head. With a shake of his shoulders, the billowing demonic aura behind him condensed into 4 giant pythons. His hands also formed swords and sabers, and he charged forward at a speed as fast as a phantom. His demon-like attack immediately scared the surrounding people away, but at this time, 3 people blocked in front of him. Yu Jinyu raised one of his palms high above his head, and white clouds began to gather on it. Then, the clouds formed the shape of a huge palm. He shouted, "Sky Cloud Palm." The cloud palm slammed down from midair. At the same time, Luo Xiuwen's face darkened as he held his brush and drew out streaks of sword aura. The sword aura formed the word, "kill." When he drew the last stroke, the sword aura of the word, "kill," shot out. Lu Lekeng was a little embarrassed. He was an array master and was not good at fighting head-on. At this time, he could only set up 2 defensive restrictions on the spot to stop Ling Shiqi. That's the ultimate skill of the Sky Cloud Pavilion, Sky Cloud Palm. It's said that the owner of the Sky Cloud Pavilion once used this move to kill a level 4 demonic beast. There's also the kill sword technique of Luo Yu Manor. Anyone hit by it will definitely die. That Master Lu can set up restrictions out of thin air. Unbelievable. Is this the true strength of a Spirit Pulse Realm expert? I actually saw it with my own eyes. If I can get out of here alive today, this is enough for me to brag about for a year. When the others saw that the 3 Spirit Pulse Realm experts had taken out their trump cards, they started chatting and seemed to have forgotten that they were also in great danger. However, Ling Shiqi's eyes were full of disdain. Facing Yu Jinyu's Sky Cloud Palm, the 4 Devil Chi pythons behind him charged forward. Immediately, there was a loud bang in midair, and a black and white ball of light appeared. Huge waves of spirit chi spread wildly, and everyone could not help but take a few steps back. At this time, Luo Xiuwen's kill sword chi also arrived in front of Ling Shiqi. Ling Shiqi casually swung the saber and sword in his hand. He didn't use any powerful sword techniques, but just swung it down, and the kill word sword energy was instantly shattered. Ling Shiqi did not slow down and rushed to the restrictions set up by Lu Lekeng. However, Lu Lekeng himself had already run as far away as he could. He saw Ling Shiqi easily break Yu Jinyu and Luo Xiuwen's attacks and knew that these 2 restrictions could not stop him at all. Sure enough, the devil chi around Ling Shiqi surged. He directly ignored the 2 restrictions and rushed forward. The devil chi pythons behind him and the sword in his hands were all aimed at the 5 demon cultivators. Su Lu and the others were already a little regretful at this moment. They thought that this trip would be very smooth, but they did not expect this black fiend demon corpse to give birth to a demon spirit. Now that the demon spirit had found a suitable body and exploded with such terrifying combat power, even if the 5 of them worked together, they might not be a match for the demon spirit, not to mention that they now had to maintain the array that sealed the demon corpse. Just as they did not know what to do, Ling Shiqi suddenly stopped. The demonic patterns on his body were slowly fading, and the demonic aura around him was disappearing by more than half. The 4 giant pythons and the sword had also disappeared into nothingness. Moreover, his upper body began to twist stiffly. Everyone was stunned when they saw this. The 5 demon cultivators' faces lit up. Although they did not know the reason, this did give them more time. They immediately put more effort into the seal. Then, half of Ling Shiqi's face faded. He said with half of his mouth strangely, "Scram. Out." Chapter 169. After being possessed by the demon spirit, Ling Shiqi's consciousness came to an extremely dark space, and he turned into a small ball of green light. He had been here before. This was his spiritual space. However, at this time, his spiritual space was shrouded in a layer of devil qi, which was constantly eroding his spiritual space. Ling Shiqi naturally could not sit still and wait for death. However, he was only a small ball of light now. What could he do? At this time, Ling Shiqi knew that he could not panic. He quickly calmed down and looked for a solution. Slowly, he remembered that when the demon spirit came out of the black fiend demonic corpse, it was also a ball of black light, but it later turned into a human form. Can I do this too? Ling Shiqi thought of this and tried it. Then, his green ball of light began to squirm irregularly and gradually stretched out. It seems to work. Gradually, Ling Shiqi seemed to have found the trick to controlling his body. Soon, it formed a green humanoid the size of a doll. However, this humanoid figure looked a little strange. Its 4 limbs were of different lengths, and the facial features on its face were blurry. Is this all I can do? Let's try it. Immediately, the green humanoid clenched its fists and slammed them into the layer of black demonic aura. Although the 2 fists were small, the force of the fists was extremely fierce. It was like a tiger pouncing on its prey and smashing into the demonic aura. The combined force of the fists directly blasted a big hole in the layer of demonic aura. Because of this, he once again felt his own body and gained some control over it. This was the scene that everyone saw outside. At this time, the right half of Ling Shiqi's face was still covered with demonic patterns. This half of his face showed a hint of surprise, then it became gloomy and said, and then, the demonic aura in Ling Shiqi's right eye soared. The demonic patterns on his body emerged again, and the demonic aura around him began to gather. At this time, Lu Leking saw this and immediately shouted, "They are fighting for control of the body. Quickly attack." Yu Jinyu and Luo Xiuwen heard this and were about to attack. However, Ling Shiqi said again, "Ignorant. Come and kill him. After you kill him, I'll just change into another body." However, Yu Jinyu and Luo Xiuwen still rushed over. They were not stupid. Just now, when the demon spirit possessed Zhong Lin, his body exploded in an instant. Now, when it possessed Ling Shiqi, it could last for so long. Anyone with a discerning eye could see that Ling Shiqi's body was extraordinary. Killing Ling Shiqi would greatly weaken Mo Ling's strength. As for Ling Shiqi's life and death, they didn't care at all. Yu Jinyu and Luo Xiuwen attacked from the left and right, 1 palm and 1 sword respectively. Ling Shiqi also felt an extreme sense of crisis. He immediately used the little bit of control he had over his body to activate the beast essence battle pattern on his back. Boom! Ling Shiqi's body suddenly swelled, bursting out of his robe, revealing his muscular upper body. At this moment, the picture of the spiritual ruin beast king lit up on his back. There were even traces of golden light flowing within the picture. Once the beast essence battle pattern appeared, it immediately forced the demonic patterns on his back to retreat. Ling Shiqi gained more control over his body. Seeing that it was effective, he immediately activated another beast essence battle pattern in front of him. Layers of silver-white light lit up at his chest, and the light quickly covered his entire body. When the silver light dissipated, Ling Shiqi's body had an extra set of scales. Until now, only the right half of Ling Shiqi's face still had demonic patterns, which made him feel slightly more at ease. The other half of the face smiled strangely and said, "Interesting." Ling Shiqi immediately felt that something was wrong. Sure enough, the demonic patterns reappeared on his silver-white scales, but they were much sparser than before. At the same time, Yu Jinyu and Luo Xiuwen's attacks were about to reach him. "Brat, if you don't want to die, give me control." The demon spirit's voice suddenly appeared in Ling Shiqi's mind. Impossible. Humph, if you die, I'll just change my body. But you'll really die. At most, we'll split it in half. Otherwise, even if I die, I won't give you control. Other than me, no one here can withstand your spiritual body. Without the support of your body, you can't use your full strength. If this continues, you'll be killed by the 5 demonic cultivators sooner or later. Half it is. Ah. Ling Shiqi let out a cry that sounded like a human, a demon, and a beast. Demonic chi surged around him, and he was covered in a layer of thin silver armor. The thin silver armor was covered with strange demonic patterns. In addition, a demonic beast pattern lit up on his back. What was even stranger was that his face was clearly split into 2 halves. The right half of his face was gloomy and violent, and his eyes were filled with pure demonic chi. The left half of his face was calm and shrewd. Blue veins popped out at the corners of his eyes, but his pupils had turned greenish-white. He stood still, and his black hair was blown wildly by the invisible force. He was like a demon. In the face of Luo Xiaowen and Yu Jinyu's attacks, he stood still. Then, he swung his right arm, and the demonic aura behind him condensed into several huge halberds. The halberds carried a ferocious demonic aura and destroyed Luo Xiaowen's sword aura like a rubber ball. They tore through his protective spirit energy and sent him flying. Luo Xiaowen spat out a few mouthfuls of blood in mid-air and fell heavily to the ground. He slid back a few feet before stopping. Luo Xiaowen clutched his chest and said in shock, "He's actually much stronger than before." Almost at the same time, Ling Shiqi's left hand formed a palm and shot out 6 palm shadows. Every palm image was burning with raging devil flames. Wave after wave of blazing fire spread out, causing the surrounding spirit cultivator to retreat. After the 6 palm shadows were shot out, they merged into a demonic palm that was 5 feet in size. The demonic palm clashed with Yu Jinyu's sky cloud palm. When the 2 palms collided, there was a boom. The 2 palms collided and exploded in midair. However, the sky cloud palm was completely suppressed by the demonic palm and shattered after 2 breaths. The demonic palm did not slow down and continued to rush towards Yu Jinyu with the demonic flames. Yu Jinyu was shocked. Just as the demonic palm was about to reach him, a light purple lightning net suddenly appeared in front of him. The demonic palm was stopped by the lightning net, and Yu Jinyu immediately reacted and dodged. The moment he dodged, the demonic palm also broke through the lightning net and hit the tomb wall behind him. It actually left a deep palm print on the wall. Wherever the demonic palm passed, whether it was the floor or the iron pillars and chains, they all melted. This palm was actually so powerful. Yu Jinyu's face had already turned pale. If this palm landed on him, he would definitely die. Thus, he also looked at Lu Leqing gratefully. If it were not for Lu Liqing's lightning net that bought him some time, he would have melted like those chains. The demon spirit borrowed his body. Similarly, Ling Shiqi could also borrow the demon spirit's demonic aura. Just now, he used the 6-yang poisonous fire palm and added a majestic demonic aura. At the same time, he used the Byakugan to see through the spiritual power distribution of the sky cloud palm and found the flaw in Yu Jinyu's palm. That was why he could easily defeat Yu Jinyu. "Kid, your palm is a bit tricky. Help me get back my physical body. I can accept you as my disciple and teach you the supreme demonic technique." Chapter 170. Inside the tomb, Ling Shiqi's demonic aura was monstrous. 2 spiritual pulse experts couldn't even take a single blow from him, which made the others feel despair. At this time, Ling Shiqi's demonic eye on the right stared fiercely at Su Lu and the other demonic cultivators, while his left eye glanced at the door of the tomb. "Boy, you have some skills. Let's join hands and kill those 5 people. Help me get my body back, and I'll teach you the supreme demonic technique." Mo Ling's voice appeared in Ling Shiqi's mind. "No, I think it's best to leave now." "Leave? How can I give up on my body that has been cultivating for thousands of years?" Humph, you think I can't see that your body has been suppressed for hundreds of years and has long been ruined? Moreover, those 5 demonic cultivators are about to be sealed, it's too late. Leng Shiqi naturally saw the situation inside the black fiend demon's corpse through his white eye. The demonic corpse looked unparalleled on the surface, but the inside of its body had long deteriorated. Presumptuous. I'm only talking to you like this because I'm giving you face. Do you know who I am? Join hands with me to get my body back, or I'll immediately devour your soul. Is that so? But you have to know that only my current state can allow you to exert the greatest power of your spirit body. If I die, you won't be able to kill the demonic cultivators. By the time they subdue your main body, your death date will also be here. Moreover, will you let me go after I help you get your body back? Are you too naive, or am I too naive? You. Mo Ling found that Leng Shiqi was unexpectedly stubborn, but what he said was all true. Now, Mo Ling still had to rely on Leng Shiqi's double beast origin battle patterns to exert the greatest power of his body. Just as the two of them were arguing, a tall figure stood up. It was Bo Yuanho's corpse. At the beginning, Bo Yuanho's corpse was sealed by the 5 demonic cultivators. Later, the black fiend demon corpse broke out of the formation and directly sent it flying to a corner of the tomb. After that, everyone's attention was placed on the black fiend demon corpse, and actually forgot about it. At this time, the fiend corpse stood up. His scarlet eyes stared at the black fiend demon corpse that was about to be sealed. Then, he waved the heavy sword in his hand and walked over with heavy steps. With every step he took, his speed increased by a bit. When everyone noticed him, he was already charging over like a fierce bull. When Su Lu saw this, he immediately panicked. They were only a hair away from completely sealing the black fiend demonic corpse. Who would have thought that another big problem would come at this time? That's impossible. Didn't the fiendish corpse turn into an ordinary corpse after its baleful aura was sucked dry? Just a little bit more, damn it. Who can stop him? However, at this time, Luo Xiuwen was injured. Yu Jinyu and Lu Leking had consumed a lot of their spiritual power, and the remaining pure spirit realm and spirit transformation realm cultivators could not help. The only one who could stop the corpses was the Leng Shiqi. Unfortunately, they were still struggling with their thoughts. At this moment, Mo Ling also saw the fiend corpse rushing over and knew what it wanted to do. He immediately pulled the right half of the Leng Shiqi and rushed forward. Mo Ling wanted to destroy the fiendish cultivator's seal and also stop the fiend corpse's attack. But this was too difficult. If he went to stop the fiend corpse, then his original body would be sealed. If he went to kill the fiendish cultivators, then his original body would have to face the attacks of Bo Yuanho's fiend corpse. Mo Ling knew the situation of his original body best. If he allowed the fiend corpse to attack, he was afraid that he would really be killed. Kid, let's work together again. I'll kill the fiendish cultivators, you go stop Bo Yuanho's fiend corpse. However, the Leng Shiqi's method was to do his best to stop Mo Ling. In the spiritual space, the Leng Shiqi was also constantly destroying the fiendish qi in order to gain more control of his body. In the outside world, he controlled the left half of his body to hold Mo Ling back. Bastard, you're courting death. Mo Ling suddenly appeared in the spiritual space. He waved his arms, and the fiendish qi behind him formed 9 giant pythons and rushed over. At the same time, in the outside world, Bo Yuanho's fiend corpse was getting faster and faster. In the blink of an eye, it was not far from the fiend corpse. Then, he raised his heavy sword, which emitted waves of fiendish qi that made people shudder. The heavy sword fell with the force of 1,000 caddies, instantly destroying the fiendish cultivator's formation and sending them flying back while vomiting blood. In the next moment, the heavy sword slashed across the fiendish black corpse's neck, and its head fell to the ground. Not only that, but the black light on the heavy sword continued to absorb the fiendish black corpse's fiendish black corpse. In the blink of an eye, the fiendish black corpse collapsed at a speed visible to the naked eye, and finally turned into a large pile of minced meat. After doing all this, Bo Yuanho's fiend corpse's tall body fell down with a loud bang, and the heavy sword fell beside him with a clang. Even if Bo Yuanho only had a trace of will left, he still wanted to kill the fiend corpse. At this moment, Su Lu and the other fiendish cultivators' eyes were so wide that they were about to pop out of their sockets. They had worked so hard and wasted so many treasures, but in the end, they had failed at the most critical moment. What made their efforts go to waste was not the fiend's spirit, who was the greatest threat, but the fiend corpse of Bo Yuanho, who they had never taken seriously. They were full of anger, but now that Bo Yuanho's fiend corpse was completely dead, they had nowhere to vent their endless anger. At the same time, in Leng Shiqi's spiritual space, the fiend's spirit controlled the 9 ferocious pythons to rush toward Leng Shiqi's spiritual body. Leng Shiqi was startled by the fiend's spirit might that soared to the sky. He hurriedly used Ghost Parade and Spirit Steps in an attempt to dodge. But the fiend's spirit laughed wildly and said, "Still want to dodge? Die." However, just as the 8 pythons were about to completely devour Leng Shiqi's spiritual body, the demon spirit trembled all over. He couldn't even maintain his human form. The pythons condensed from demonic aura naturally dissipated into nothingness. Leng Shiqi's heart moved. He knew that the fiend's spirit's main body had been killed. After all, the fiend's spirit was only born from the fiend corpse's remnant will after many years of accumulation. He originally relied on the main body to exist, which was why he had to take back his physical body. Now that his main body was killed, his spiritual body was naturally seriously injured, and his strength sharply decreased. The reason why Leng Shiqi wanted to stop the fiend's spirit was because of this. Taking advantage of this opportunity, Leng Shiqi hurriedly controlled his body to take out something that should not exist in this world from the system space. A small glass bottle. The glass bottle contained a light blue liquid. This was the prize that Leng Shiqi won from the 20 consecutive draws on Blood Mist Island, the spirit mixture. Leng Shiqi raised his head and drank it. Then, in the spiritual space, his spiritual body shone with a green light. Not only did it grow several times, but it also formed the same appearance as himself. Even a strand of hair was very fine. He clenched his hands and condensed 2 long swords, staring at the fiend's spirit with killing intent. Chapter 171. In the spiritual space, Leng Shiqi slashed out 2 cyan blade auras that were like crescent moons. The blade auras flew out with boundless sharpness. The demon spirit's entire body was still trembling. It was unable to resist at all and allowed the 2 cyan blade auras to slash its body. The 2 cyan blade auras instantly cut the demon spirit into 3 pieces. The demon spirit's body became even smaller and could no longer maintain its human form. All that was left was its head. In the outside world, the demonic patterns on Leng Shiqi's body were fading. At the same time, his aura suddenly dropped. It dropped again and again until it was equivalent to the early stage of the Spirit Pulse realm. This huge change in aura immediately attracted the attention of the Spirit Pulse realm cultivators, especially the 5 demonic cultivators. Su Lu's face was ferocious as he shouted, "The demon corpse has been slashed and the demon spirit has also been heavily injured. Kill this person and hook out the demon spirit. I will torture it day and night so that it will never be reincarnated." Voila! The 5 demonic cultivators took out a strange weapon at the same time. The weapon seemed to connect the 2 curved blades together. Then, a faint black demonic aura emitted from the weapon. The 5 of them charged towards Leng Shiqi with killing intent in their eyes. At this time, Leng Shiqi had regained control of most of his body. Seeing 5 Spirit Pulse realm experts surround him, he was shocked. A part of his mind sank into the spiritual space and said, "Demon spirit, do you want to live? If you have something to say, say it." At this moment, the demon's soul spoke, but its voice was obviously weak. "Lend me all your strength and charge out. You just injured this sovereign and you want this sovereign to help you? Wishful thinking." The demon spirit roared. "But if I die, you will definitely fall into their hands. Didn't you hear them just now? They want to lock you up and torture you so that you will never be reincarnated. Helping me escape is also helping yourself. After we get out, we will settle our grudges with our own abilities. It's better than dying in the hands of others. Okay. Mo Ling hesitated for a moment before finally agreeing. Then, he completely gave up control of Leng Shiqi's body. Not only did Leng Shiqi regain control of his body, but he also felt a huge amount of devil chi surging out of his body. However, at this moment, the 5 fiendish cultivators had already arrived. Leng Shiqi tapped his feet lightly, and 2 streams of black mist rose up to his thighs, increasing his speed by 80%. Then, he used floating spirit steps and dodged the attacks of the 2 like a ghost. Leng Shiqi's footsteps paused as he threw out a punch and a palm respectively. That punch was followed by the sound of a tiger's roar. Immediately after, a shadow of a ferocious tiger leaped out and crashed into a devil cultivator, sending him flying. Furthermore, when that person wasn't paying attention, a powerful hidden energy surged into his body, causing him to spit out a few mouthfuls of blood. The other palm was the 6-yang poisonous fire palm. The devil cultivator had seen the power of this palm and did not dare to fight it head-on. Instead, he chose to retreat. Leng Shiqi dodged the attacks of the 2 and forced the other 2 to retreat, but there was still one devil cultivator who had not made a move yet. That was Su Lu. He had been watching Leng Shiqi's movements, looking for a flaw. At this moment, Su Lu's strange weapon burst out with an astonishing cold light and slashed horizontally. Leng Shiqi had thrown out a punch and a palm in succession. At this time, he was in a short period of weakness. This time, he could not avoid it. With a thought, a layer of pure devil chi was attached to his body. It was also at this moment that Su Lu's weapon arrived. With a buzzing sound, the weapon hit the devil chi and caused it to tremble. In less than a blink of an eye, it was broken. The weapon continued forward and cut a deep wound on Leng Shiqi's silver scale armor. With a strong force, Leng Shiqi could not help but fly backward and crash into the crowd of Heavenly Cloud Tower. The people of Heavenly Cloud Tower immediately scattered, while Eugenu's eyes flashed with killing intent. Just now, he had been defeated by Mo Ling. Although he was not injured, he had lost face. Now that Mo Ling's strength had been greatly reduced, he might as well hit him when he was down. After Leng Shiqi fell to the ground, he stood up directly regardless of his injuries. His eyes paused on someone in Heavenly Cloud Tower for a moment, and then he flashed out. Just as Eugeniu was about to make a move, a disciple next to him whispered, "Elder Yu, we have been fooled by the 5 devil cultivators for a long time. Why don't we let them and Mo Ling kill each other now? No matter who wins, the winner will definitely be seriously injured. At that time, we will come out to eliminate the devil cultivators. The name of Heavenly Cloud Tower will definitely spread throughout Donglin County." The person who spoke was Yoshia, who had been controlled by Leng Shiqi. Hearing Yoshia's words, Eugeniu nodded secretly and said, "It's a very good idea. You are very smart. I don't deserve it." Eugeniu stopped making a move and prepared to sit on the mountain and watch the tigers fight. Seeing this, Leng Shiqi secretly breathed a sigh of relief. Dealing with the 5 devil cultivators was already his limit. If Eugeniu joined in, he was afraid that he would die here. Su Lu and others continued to attack. Eugeniu retreated far away with the people of Heavenly Cloud Tower. Leng Shiqi turned into a phantom and rushed out. On the ground where he had just fallen, there was a small inconspicuous pill. Yoshia's eyes were filled with eagerness when he saw the pill. That was the last antidote of the ant-devouring poison pill. The battle between Leng Shiqi and the 5 devil cultivators was still going on. Although it was called a battle, it was more like Leng Shiqi had been dodging. If he couldn't dodge, he would fight head-on. It didn't take long for his body to be covered with wounds. In the process, many people were killed by mistake. What everyone didn't notice was that Leng Shiqi's position was slowly approaching the door. However, he didn't deliberately get close. Instead, he circled around every time he got closer. He was afraid that others would find out his intention. At this time, Leng Shiqi visually estimated the distance to the door and said secretly, "It's about time." Facing the 5 demonic cultivators, a spiritual sword suddenly appeared in his hand. Soon after, a graceful and agile feeling surged from his body. His figure flickered, and in an instant, more than 20 phantoms appeared. Many phantoms stabbed out with their swords in different postures, and each sword was accompanied by an amazing sword chi. In an instant, the sword chi overflowed, and the sword chi was everywhere. The faces of the 5 devil cultivators changed slightly. They couldn't tell if these phantoms were real or fake, so they could only defend. However, one of the phantoms didn't attack them. Instead, it turned around and rushed to the door. Su Lu was the first to notice Leng Shiqi's intention. He immediately used his devil chi to force back the phantoms around him, and with a wave of his weapon, he shattered several sword chi and chased after him. Leng Shiqi took out 3 flying daggers from his sleeves. The 3 flying daggers were stained with pure demonic aura and shot out in a triangular formation. After the flying daggers were shot out, the daggers absorbed the demonic aura on them and even absorbed the surrounding light. The entire surrounding area seemed to have become dimmer. This was a level 3 spiritual skill, devouring light-throwing knives. Su Lu's figure suddenly stopped. The strange weapon in his hand spun, and with 3 clangs, the 3 throwing knives were knocked to the ground. However, Su Lu was also knocked back. His feet slid on the ground, leaving 2 deep grooves. After Leng Shiqi shot out the throwing knives, he took out his 3-part spear. His aura was unparalleled. He drew a huge black cross of light and brazenly blasted it at the door. Chapter 172. Rumble. A loud noise suddenly came from the tomb. Under Leng Shiqi's formation-breaking cross spear, half of the tomb's door had collapsed. Leng Shiqi went out without hesitation. Su Lu and the other 4 demonic cultivators roared and immediately chased after him. However, just as they approached the door, a huge wave of ink-colored cold air rushed in from outside. Before the cold air touched them, Su Lu felt a bone-piercing cold, as if he had fallen into a 10,000-year-old ice cellar. Su Lu immediately shouted, "Retreat!" The other 4 people retreated one after another, barely avoiding the cold air that surged towards them. However, the cold air condensed and froze the collapsed part of the door. Seeing this, Su Lu's face was even darker than his clothes. He knew that even if they broke the ice wall, they would not be able to catch up with the demon spirit. Their trip this time could be said to be fruitless, and they even lost a bunch of treasures. It could be said that they went for wool and came home shorn. One of the demonic cultivators asked, "Senior brother, what should we do?" Su Lu's face was gloomy, and his eyes were filled with killing intent. He said in a low voice, "Without the black fiend demon corpse, our whereabouts cannot be exposed." The other 4 understood Su Lu's meaning and then turned to look at the remaining people coldly. Luo Xiuwen was the closest to them, and he immediately sensed the killing intent from the 5 demonic cultivators. His heart skipped a beat. Now that he was seriously injured and lost more than half of his disciples, he was no match for the 5 demonic cultivators at the spiritual pulse realm. Lu Lucheng was alone and an array master, so he was not good at fighting head-on. The city guards were attacked by the demon spirit from the beginning and suffered heavy casualties. Go Huarong was still alive, but it was difficult for him to protect himself with his few spirit transformation realm cultivators and a group of pure spirit realm cultivators. As for the remaining rogue cultivators, they were like a plate of loose sand, almost as if they did not exist. The only ones who still maintained the strongest combat power were the people from Heavenly Cloud Tower. Therefore, Su Lu and the other 4 regarded them as the first targets to kill. On the other hand, Leng Shiqi's frozen door had helped the demonic cultivators to temporarily trap everyone here. Yu Jinyu shouted with a pale face, "What do you want to do?" "We are from Heavenly Cloud Tower." Su Lu didn't say a word as he approached with the odd-shaped blade in his hand. Apparently, he didn't take the Heavenly Cloud Tower seriously. Yu Jinyu shouted to everyone, "Everyone, they actually want to silence us. Even though they are all in the Spirit Pulse realm, there are only 5 of them. If we join forces, we might still stand a chance." Luo Xiuwen and Lu Lekeng also stood up and expressed their attitude. When the other sects saw the 3 Spirit Pulse Realm cultivators standing at the front, they naturally gathered around as well. The demonic cultivators only had 2 more Spirit Pulse Realm cultivators. Just as Yu Jinyu had said, they had a chance of winning. However, the nameless demonic cultivator laughed sinisterly. Then, a head, a pair of arms, a pair of legs, a skeleton, and a heart appeared in each of their hands. Demonic chi rose from the bodies of the demonic cultivators. After a dozen breaths of time, the scattered limbs actually connected together in the demonic chi, finally forming a demonic corpse. And that demonic corpse's aura was stronger than any of them. Su Lu laughed and said, "Demonic corpse of the 5 ghosts, enjoy your meal." The demonic corpse of the 5 ghosts was their trump card, but it took time to summon the demonic corpse of the 5 ghosts. Previously, Ling Shiqi was too fast for them to assemble. Now, it was time for them to slaughter. The 5 of them licked the corners of their mouths. On the other side, after Ling Shiqi escaped from the tomb, he quickly passed through the mechanism corridor. However, when he was about to reach the entrance of the mausoleum, he directly jumped up and disappeared into the mountain wall above. Then, he went all the way up to the top of the mountain. Then, Ling Shiqi suddenly stopped and his mind sank into the spiritual space. In his spiritual space, Mo Ling became even more dispirited. Ling Shiqi transformed into a long green blade and walked closer. Mo Ling said weakly, "What, now that you've escaped, you want to burn the bridge after crossing it?" Ling Shiqi's spiritual body began to slowly shrink at this time. He knew that the effect of the spiritual medicine was about to end, so he had to end the battle quickly. However, Mo Ling suddenly laughed sinisterly, "And, do you really think I'm easy to bully? Look around you." Ling Shiqi turned his head when he heard this. It turned out that a circle of various strange beasts formed by demonic patterns had appeared around him. The patterns were lifelike and looked like they would turn real at any time to tear him apart. Previously, in the outside world, Ling Shiqi's thoughts were all on dealing with the 5 demonic cultivators and thinking of a way to escape. He actually allowed Mo Ling to set up such a trap. The demon spirit's remaining head grinned and said, "Ha ha ha, a little ant dares to threaten this lord again and again. Now, as long as you take the initiative to offer your body, this lord can let you die a little faster, and you can even have a chance to reincarnate." Ling Shiqi looked around carefully at the strange beasts and then looked at Mo Ling. He felt that something was not right. Then, his spiritual body closed and opened his eyes, and his eyes turned white. His spiritual body also activated Byakugan. Under the characteristics of Byakugan, Ling Shiqi instantly saw through Mo Ling's trick and immediately sneered in his heart, so he was deliberately mystifying. "This is just a smokescreen." That's right, if Mo Ling still has this kind of power, why did he have to join forces with me to escape? He could just kill the demonic cultivators directly. Mo Ling was still laughing wildly. However, Ling Shiqi still held the dual blades and walked forward slowly. Mo Ling's heart skipped a beat when he saw this, but he still looked like he had victory in his hands and a majestic demonic aura rose behind him. It was amazing. "Brat, surrender before I go back on my words." Unfortunately, Ling Shiqi was unmoved and continued to walk forward. At this moment, he had already walked in front of a strange beast. He gently waved his blade and cut the strange beast in half. Mo Ling didn't expect Ling Shiqi to see through his trick. He stared at Ling Shiqi's Byakugan for a moment. "You actually have such a strange eye technique." Ling Shiqi still ignored him. He raised his dual blades and the blades began to shine again. Mo Ling suddenly said quickly, "Don't kill me, don't kill me. We can still continue to work together. Don't you want to have the power to fight against 5 Spirit Pulse Realm cultivators with your Spirit Transformation Realm cultivation? As long as you let me stay in your spiritual space, I can lend you my power at any time." Mo Ling's address for himself had changed from "I" to "I." Ling Shiqi didn't answer him, and the blade shined even brighter. Mo Ling quickly continued, "Also, I have countless high-level cultivation methods, spiritual techniques, and extremely rare secret techniques. As long as you don't kill me, I can give them all to you. In addition, I left behind several treasures when I was alive, and the resources inside will all belong to you. With these, you will be able to break through to the spirit pulse realm soon. In the future, you might even be able to transcend the 4 realms of heaven and become a powerful cultivator. Hearing this, Ling Shiqi finally restrained some of the blade shines, but he didn't put down the blades. He said, "Words are no guarantee." Mo Ling saw Ling Shiqi say this and knew that he had taken the bait. He immediately spat out a cloud of demonic aura, and the demonic aura outlined 3 paragraphs of text in front of him. They were the 9 Nether Demonic Pattern Diagram, Demonic Weapon Mystic Technique, and Earth Fiend Demonic Shadow Claw. Chapter 173. The demonic energy condensed into 3 paragraphs of text, and Mo Ling's voice came, "This 9 Nether Mageweth diagram is a supreme cultivation technique that even I am cultivating. Its grade is beyond your imagination. However, your realm is too low, so I can only give you the first 3 levels. The Demonic Armament Secret Manual is a high-level spiritual technique. Once you master it, you can condense a demonic armament and wipe out an army. I can only teach you the first move, but I can teach you the complete Earth Fiend Demon Shadow Claw. This is a level 4 spiritual technique." Ling Shiqi secretly read these 3 paragraphs of text, and a system prompt appeared in front of his eyes, indicating that Mo Ling did not tamper with the techniques. However, Ling Shiqi had also roughly guessed Mo Ling's thoughts. The reason he only wrote a part of the 9 Nether Mageweth diagram and the Demonic Weapons Mystic Classic was to use them as bait to keep Ling Shiqi in suspense. Sure enough, Mo Ling continued, "However, these techniques are too advanced. Although your aptitude is not bad, it is not that easy to get started. I can also guide you in your cultivation." However, Ling Shiqi did not speak. He seemed to be thinking, and Mo Ling was also watching his reaction closely. In fact, Ling Shiqi's real consciousness had already gone to the gray space to cultivate these 3 techniques. It was just that the time required to cultivate a spiritual skill of this level was much longer than that of level 2 or level 3 spiritual skills. After a short while, Ling Shiqi's spiritual body came back to his senses and raised his head slightly. Mo Ling said in a confident tone, "Kid, have you thought it through? Follow me, and I guarantee you will." However, before Mo Ling could finish his sentence, he was greeted by 2 cyan moon blades. Bastard! The demonic spirit was furious. He opened his mouth to a terrifying extent. Billowing demonic chi spewed out from his mouth, condensing into different weapons to meet the saber light. The 2 collided fiercely, causing the spiritual space to tremble slightly. Even though Mo Ling's strength was less than 10%, the effect of Ling Shiqi's spiritual medicine was almost over, so this confrontation was actually evenly matched. However, Mo Ling's aura had clearly weakened again. Ling Shiqi did not dare to give it any chance to breathe. He turned his saber into a sword, and with a movement of his body, 12 cyan phantoms appeared. The devil spirit was both angry and frightened. Its little remaining devil chi rapidly condensed, forming its body and limbs. In addition to its original head, it formed the appearance of a black fiend devil corpse. Unfortunately, it was only the size of a baby. Ling Shiqi's 12 swords arrived. Mo Ling roared, and demonic patterns appeared on the demon corpse's body and connected to each other to form a set of black heavy armor. The 12 swords flashed quickly, causing the devil chi on Mo Ling's body to dissipate. Unfortunately, this was the spiritual space, and no one had a physical body. So, whether it was the pulse unblocking sword chi or the frost sword chi, they did not have any physical effect. This move, Dazzling Flower, did not directly defeat Mo Ling. However, Ling Shiqi's attack did not stop at all. He withdrew his sword and condensed it into a spear. His eyes showed the courage of a warrior on the battlefield, and the tip of his spear pierced over with a cyan cross. The formation-breaking cross spear finally completely broke through the demonic pattern heavy armor on Mo Ling's body, and the tip of the spear pierced into Mo Ling's head. Mo Ling suddenly let out a few shrill screams. At this moment, his whole body was collapsing, and even the shape of his head could not be maintained. All that was left was a black ball of light. Leng Shiqi's spiritual body was almost unable to maintain its human form due to excessive consumption. Leng Shiqi raised his right fist, and at the last moment he could still maintain his human form. He blasted out a tiger wave stepping fist. As the heavy fist approached, Mo Ling no longer had any other means. He shouted sharply, "Madman, you are a madman. You don't want the supreme technique and endless resources. You are simply stupid to the extreme." At the last moment, he was still hoping that Leng Shiqi would stop. Unfortunately, the fist finally fell, and Mo Ling was directly blown away by this fist. At this moment, Leng Shiqi's spiritual body had turned back into a ball of light, and his aura was weak. Then he returned his consciousness to his body and immediately removed the two Beast Yuan battle patterns. Immediately, Leng Shiqi's body suddenly burst open with bloody wounds one after another. Blood flowed out from his limbs and bones, and all the meridians in his body were aching faintly. This time, he had never activated the Beast Yuan battle patterns for so long. Now the burden on his body was too great, and he even felt like he was about to collapse. Leng Shiqi endured the pain and swallowed a few elixirs to nourish his qi and blood. He shook his head with a bitter smile. He chose to get involved in the matter of Boiwanhu's tomb in order to seek opportunities to make a breakthrough quickly. Who knew that not only was there a huge secret hidden in the tomb, but there was also nothing at all. In the end, he was covered in injuries. However, Leng Shiqi was not without gains. It could be said that he gained a lot, and that was the technique and spiritual technique given by Mo Ling. Although the 9 Nether magic pattern was only incomplete, it was enough to compare to a rank 4 technique. This technique was the main technique of the Black Fiend demonic corpse. The core of this technique was the magic pattern. This magic pattern could be said to have endless magical uses, but Leng Shiqi was only at the beginner level and had not had time to study the use of the magic pattern in detail. What was even more precious was that this cultivation method was a combination of spirit cultivation and body refinement. Leng Shiqi was very satisfied with this. The reason he could survive today's battle was largely because his physical strength was not weak. Otherwise, after being possessed by Mo Ling, it would not take long for him to explode and die like Zhonglin. There would not be any follow-up. Before this, Leng Shiqi had already cultivated the 8 stones horizontal training technique to the extreme. He did not have any other body refining techniques, so his physical strength had not improved for a long time. Now, the 9 Nether magic pattern could be regarded as making up for this. The demonic weapon secret technique was also a very high-level spiritual technique. Leng Shiqi did not know how high it was. He only knew that the first move of this spiritual technique was comparable to a rank 4 spiritual technique. Leng Shiqi did not dare to imagine how high the overall grade of this spiritual technique was. Although he also coveted the follow-up techniques and spiritual techniques, he knew that Mo Ling was too terrifying. He did not dare to keep it in his spiritual space. Others carried a kind old grandpa with them, but he had to carry 1,000-year-old demonic corpses Mo Ling. Who knew if he would be killed by Mo Ling one day? As for the Earth Fiend demonic shadow claw, it was also a genuine rank 4 spiritual technique. It could be said that it had greatly increased his strength. Overall, he had gained quite a lot from this trip. However, what made Leng Shiqi even more surprised was that he inadvertently discovered that his cultivation had unknowingly reached the 7th level of the spirit transformation realm. Chapter 174. Leng Shiqi suddenly realized that his cultivation had inexplicably increased to the 7th level of the spirit transformation realm. However, he was very clear that he had just broken through to the 6th level of the spirit transformation realm 2 days ago. Furthermore, the 6th level to the 7th level was a huge bottleneck. He had originally prepared for a long period of cultivation, but now he had broken through just like that? After a moment of joy, Leng Shiqi revealed a hint of suspicion. He hurriedly looked inside his Qi Si and discovered that the originally pure white spirit energy in his Qi Si was actually mixed with a small portion of black spirit energy. Is that the demonic spirit energy produced by cultivating the 9 nether demonic pattern? But even if I cultivate an additional rank 4 cultivation technique, it shouldn't be enough to reach the 7th level of the spirit transformation realm all of a sudden, right? Could it be that I accidentally absorbed a portion of the demon spirit's power? Leng Shiqi thought to himself, and the more he thought about it, the more he felt that it was possible. He had once borrowed the power of the demon spirit, and then suddenly killed it. Perhaps there was still a bit of its power left in his body. To the demon spirit, it was just a little bit of power, but it was enough to allow Leng Shiqi to cross a small realm and ignore a bottleneck, directly breaking through. Leng Shiqi muttered, blood, these injuries are really worth it. At this moment, Leng Shiqi suddenly felt a slight fluctuation of spirit energy from below. He was surprised and immediately opened his supercilious eyes to look down. Now that all the formations in the mausoleum had been destroyed, his supercilious eyes could penetrate through without any obstruction, so he saw that there was a fierce battle going on in the mausoleum. He also saw a huge amount of spirit energy with an unknown aura. It was Su Lu and the other 5 demonic cultivators who were slaughtering the remaining spirit cultivators. Leng Shiqi thought to himself, are they killing people to silence them? That's good, so that my information won't be leaked out. However, when he saw one of the familiar spirit energies dissipate, his heart moved. Then, he adjusted his body for a while to recover some strength before breaking out of the ground and walking towards Shangyang City. The owner of the spirit energy that disappeared just now was Go Huarong. Now that Go Huarong was dead and the elites of the Qingkou Hall were almost all dead, the only ones left were the low-level spirit cultivators of the spirit assembly realm guarding the entrance of the mausoleum. In other words, Qingkou Hall only existed in name. Since that was the case, the resources that Qingkou Hall had accumulated over the years naturally could not be given to others. Before the news spread, Leng Shiqi dragged his injured body and stole a horse to rush to Shangyang City. While Leng Shiqi was hurrying on his way, 5 demonic cultivators stood in the middle of a blood-soaked azura field. At this moment, only the 5 of them were left alive in the tomb. Regardless of whether it was Heavenly Cloud Tower, Luoyu Manor, or other spirit cultivator sects, or people from the imperial court like the city guards, or rogue cultivators, all of them had perished here. However, the 5 demonic cultivators were not in good condition either. Each of them was heavily injured. Su Lu covered a bloody hole in his right chest and said hatefully, I didn't expect that old man Lu Luqing to have so many trump cards. If it weren't for the 5 ghost demon corpses, we might have really lost our lives. This time, we really suffered a big loss. Although the black fiend demon corpses are useless, they still have some use. It can be considered as making up for a small loss. Senior brother, are we going to go out directly? I remember that there are still many people outside. Su Lu thought for a moment and said, that's right. Although the cultivation of those people outside is low, we are all injured. It's impossible to kill them all. If we go out rashly, we will definitely leak our information. We might as well hide here and use a secret technique to conceal ourselves. Then, we will find an opportunity to go out. After we go out, we will go find the devil's spirit. I will definitely make him unable to reincarnate forever. After that, the 5 of them walked to a dark corner of the mausoleum and sat down cross-legged. One of them released a faint demonic chi from his hands to cover them up, perfectly blending into the darkness. Outside Boyuan Ho's mausoleum, there were indeed many people gathered here. Some of them were from the Qingkou Hall and the city guard, while most of them were rogue cultivators. Almost all of these people were only in the spirit assembly realm. They knew that their cultivation was too low. They might not be able to find any treasures after going in, and would most likely lose their lives. Therefore, they were purely here to watch the show. They wanted to see who would be the final winner. Which faction obtained what, how many people they lost, and so on. These would all become the hot topic of discussion in the future. However, they waited from late in the morning until the clear moon hung high in the sky. Still, they did not see anyone come out. Many people were anxious, especially the people from the Qingkou Hall and the city guard. They were afraid that something unexpected had happened. Many people were also discussing spiritedly. What's going on? It's just a mausoleum. Why haven't they come out after so long? There must be a lot of danger inside. It's not like you didn't feel the huge earthquake during the day. But it's already night time. Whether they are dead or alive, there should be a sound. Why don't we go in and take a look? If you want to go, then go. We don't know if so many experts are dead or alive. You're courting death. Some of them were worried, some were afraid, but most of them were curious. They were curious about what had happened inside. However, no one dared to go in and find out. The night passed just like that. However, no one came out. At this time, the people from the Chinko Hall and the city guard could not sit still. They discussed for a while and decided to join forces to go in and take a look. With someone taking the lead, the rogue cultivators who wanted to watch the show followed in one by one. They walked through the mechanism passageway and the corpse puppet mausoleum, buzzing all the way. However, when they approached the main mausoleum, they smelled the strong smell of blood from afar. The expressions of the people from the Chinko Hall and the city guard changed. They quickened their steps and walked into the main mausoleum. Then, everyone who entered the main mausoleum was stunned like a statue. The people at the back were still pushing and shoving with some dissatisfaction. The moment they squeezed into the main mausoleum, what they saw was a horrifying scene of blood flowing like a river and broken limbs everywhere. Blurg, some people could not stand it and vomited on the spot. However, while these people were in a daze, no one noticed that 5 figures had quietly mixed into the crowd and left the main mausoleum. Those 5 people were naturally Su Lu and the other 4 devil cultivators. However, what everyone did not know was that in a mountain valley 10 miles away, 9 spirit cultivators in white robes were setting up an array and anxiously waiting for something. These people did not look very old, but they were all at the spirit transformation realm. They were the 9 elite disciples of the Hao Yi sect other than Lu Lucheng. At that time, before Lu Lucheng entered the mausoleum alone, he told them to hide here and set up a sound transmission array to wait for him to send news at any time. However, they waited for a long time and did not hear any news from Lu Lucheng. Their hearts were beating fast, afraid that something had happened to Lu Lucheng. At this moment, the array in front of them suddenly lit up. Then, Lu Lucheng's voice came from inside. He told them everything that had happened in the main mausoleum, including the matter of Bo Yuan Ho, the 5 devil cultivators, the black fiend demon corpse, the demon spirit, and the matter of them being silenced by the devil cultivators. At this moment, the 9 people knew of the great changes that had happened in the mausoleum. They were all dumbfounded, but Lu Lucheng's death made them feel even more grief and indignation. Quickly return to the sect. This matter can only be decided by the sect master himself. Chapter 175. By the time everyone discovered the tomb, Ling Shiqi had already arrived at Shangyang City. Because of his injuries, he didn't dare to move too fast even when riding a horse. Arriving at Shangyang City again, Ling Shiqi couldn't help but sigh. In the past half a month, he had come here 3 times. The first time was to assassinate Bao Pengyi, and the second time was for the tomb of Bo Yuan Ho. The third time was for the resources of Chinko Hall. Because the people of Chinko Hall could come back at any time, Ling Shiqi couldn't delay. After entering the city, he passed through a few alleys and familiarly arrived at the main hall of Chinko Hall. In fact, he had already discovered Go Huarong's private storehouse, but there were many people guarding it in the past, including many spirit cultivators of the spirit transformation realm. Moreover, there were many mechanisms inside. Even if he could use his supercilious eyes to detect them, destroying the mechanisms would inevitably cause noise and attract attention. So Ling Shiqi didn't make a move before. Currently, 70 to 80% of the spirit cultivators in the Chinko Hall had been brought to the flat roof, and the remaining spirit cultivators were scattered to the various streets. Currently, there were only a pitiful dozen spirit cultivators in the main hall. Ling Shiqi quietly sneaked into the secret room, and wantonly destroyed the mechanisms inside, and began to plunder Go Huarong's many years of collection. However, What made Leng Shiqi's face gloomy was that most of the resources in the secret room had disappeared, leaving only a few ordinary resources. There were only 400 spirit stones, which was simply impossible for a gang that had been rooted in Shangyang City for nearly 20 years. There were quite a few level 1 and level 2 spirit tools, but Leng Shiqi sold them all to the system. There were also some pills for the pure spirit realm and the spirit transformation realm. Leng Shiqi kept some of the better quality pills for himself and sold the rest. The rest were some heavenly treasures and the like. Leng Shiqi never kept these things, but he did find something very useful here. Blood Yang Crystal. This was a level 3 treasure that contained a large amount of blood qi and had a wide range of uses. It could be used to refine one's body and prevent one's qi and blood from deteriorating. Of course, it could also be used to replenish one's qi and blood. Leng Shiqi had been using 2 beast origin battle tattoos for a long time and had suffered a severe loss of vitality. This blood sun crystal could be said to be a timely rain. After tidying everything up, Leng Shiqi also discovered that the most precious resources, the cultivation methods and spiritual techniques that he wanted the most, were all gone. These resources were most likely hidden in Go Huarong's mind, but unfortunately, they no longer existed. Before he left, Leng Shiqi suddenly remembered that not long ago, when he plundered Bao Pengyi's private vault, he also lost more than half of the resources. It could be said that it was exactly the same as this place. There was some doubt in his eyes, but then he remembered that Bao Pengyi had once climbed up to the Heavenly Cloud Tower, and that the Chinko Hall had joined forces with the Luoyu Manor. They were a dignified third-rate spirit cultivator sect. Why would they be related to a gang in the marketplace? I'm afraid that Bao Pengyi and Go Huarong had to hand over more than half of their precious resources to climb up to the spirit cultivator sect. Unfortunately, the Three Blades gang had already been destroyed, the Chinko Hall only existed in name, and the city guards were also less than a tenth of them. I'm afraid that Shangyang City will be in chaos for a while. However, none of this had anything to do with him. After he packed everything up, he silently left with the Blood Sun crystal and more than 600 system coins. After that, Leng Shiqi spent a day refining the Blood Sun crystal, absorbing the qi and blood energy within it. The injuries on his body had also recovered by 70 to 80%, and he only needed to rest for a few more days. Counting the time, it's been more than 20 days since I accepted the mission to assassinate Bao Pengyi. There are only a few days left until the mission deadline. I really didn't expect that this trip would be so difficult. Leng Shiqi softly muttered to himself, then returned to the Shadow Wind Ridge branch. Along the way, he would occasionally use supercilious eyes to investigate the surroundings, afraid that he would accidentally encounter the 5 demonic cultivators. However, it was obvious that he was overthinking. He arrived at the Shadow Wind Ridge very smoothly. However, when he approached the entrance of the branch, he subconsciously stopped and looked at the huge scorched pit beside him. This was the place where he was beaten half to death by Tang Haoqing from the Tang family 10 days ago. He would always remember that punch. Then, he walked into the branch that he had not seen for a long time. Looking at the crowded square, he secretly sighed in relief. He had been wandering around for nearly a month, and he was finally back. At this time, a black-clothed assassin brushed past Leng Shiqi. After that person walked past him, he suddenly stopped, turned around, and exclaimed, "Leng Shiqi?" Huh? Leng Shiqi could not help but turn his head to look at that person, but he found that he did not seem to know him at all. In fact, that person did not know Leng Shiqi. The cause of all this was when Tang Haoqing came to cause trouble 10 days ago. Tang Haoqing's punch killed Fan Jingchu on the spot, but Leng Shiqi went missing. The Grand Pavilion leader Ghost Ju was so angry that he severely injured Tang Haoqing and killed 2 Tang family disciples. Since then, he had asked everyone to look for Leng Shiqi, so people here were very clear about his body shape and appearance. But after searching for more than 10 days, there was no news, so everyone assumed that he was dead. But now, Leng Shiqi came back by himself. As soon as that person's voice fell, the noisy square suddenly quieted down, and everyone's eyes gathered on Leng Shiqi. Feeling the eyes of the crowd, Leng Shiqi was a little surprised. The black-clothed assassin stared at him and said, Ling Shiqi, you're not dead? At this time, other people also rushed over and said one after another, this kid is really tough. This boy is so tough that he can survive the attack of a gang spirit realm master. The Grand Pavilion leader said that he might not die, but I didn't believe it. The Grand Pavilion leader is really the Grand Pavilion leader. The Grand Pavilion leader fought for him and seriously injured Tang Haoqing. It's really satisfying. But recently, we've been asking around for news about him, but we got nothing. Where is he hiding? These assassins rarely got together to chat like this, because there was really nothing worth gathering together. They usually repeated the boring life of cultivation and tasks, so it was rare for them to chat like this, so more and more people gathered here. Ling Shiqi looked like he didn't know whether to laugh or cry. Fortunately, he had put on a mask, so no one could see it. At this time, the savior came. A red-clothed assassin embroidered with golden patterns came over. Everyone stood up straight and said in unison, Lord Gu Yan. Gu Yan's voice was very deep. He said, let's go. The others immediately scattered. Gu Yan said to Ling Shiqi, the Grand Pavilion leader is looking for you. Come with me. Chapter 176. After a month, Ling Shiqi saw Ghost Ju, the Grand Pavilion master of the Donglin County branch. He found that Ghost Ju had a lot more white hair in his bun. Furthermore, Ling Shiqi could even sense a trace of lethargy from his body. He immediately remembered that someone had mentioned that the Grand Pavilion master had seriously injured Tang Haoqing. He thought to himself, it said that the Grand Pavilion master is very old, and his qi and blood have begun to decline. He can't fight at will. Could it be that his qi and blood have deteriorated because he forced himself to fight? Ghost Ju was relieved when he saw Ling Shiqi walk in unscathed. He said slowly, you're really troublesome. When Tang Haoqing attacked, I sensed an aura escape. After that, all the disciples in the branch tried to find out about you, but there was no news, so they all thought you were dead. However, I know you're not simple, so I reported to the pavilion master that you were missing. Ling Shiqi could not help but feel a little embarrassed when he heard this. After he recovered from his injuries, he had disguised himself and entered Shangyang City. He had only come into contact with Mao Kai, and then he had been hiding under the Qingkou Hall. It would be strange if those people could find him. Mao Kai had broken the rules of the blood-robed pavilion to give him the information, so Mao Kai definitely did not dare to say that he had seen Ling Shiqi. Ling Shiqi immediately said, although I escaped, I was seriously injured and on the verge of death. I found a hidden place to heal and did not dare to show up. I've troubled the Grand Pavilion Master. It's good that you're back. I see that your cultivation has improved a lot. It's a blessing in disguise, Ghost Ju said meaningfully. Ling Shiqi knew that he could not hide his cultivation from the Grand Pavilion Master, so he had already prepared an excuse. Just as he was about to explain, Ghost Ju waved his hand indifferently. Everyone has their own opportunities. Since you're back, you should rest for a few days. Wait for the new Grand Pavilion Master to take over before you accept any missions. The new Grand Pavilion Master? Ling Shiqi could not help but be stunned. Ghost Ju said, I've already sent the news of your return to the Pavilion Master. Although you're not dead, you had an accident in my hands. I still have to bear the responsibility. I'm sure I won't be able to sit in the position of Pavilion Leader anymore. The Pavilion Branch Great Pavilion Leader was a position of great power in the blood-robed pavilion. Although Ghost Ju was no longer one of the 9 Underworld Blood Cloak Assassins, the Underworld Blood Cloak Assassins were all concentrated in the General Pavilion. There were 3 of the strongest people above them, so they didn't have much power and benefits to share. On the contrary, although the resources of the branch pavilion were not as good as the main pavilion, the Grand Pavilion Leader had the highest authority here. He was equivalent to a local tyrant. Some were even more well off than the Netherworld blood-clothed assassins. However, because of Ling Shiqi, Gue Ju wanted to step down from his post. This made Ling Shiqi feel a bit guilty. Great Pavilion Leader, this disciple, there's no need to say any more. Guoju interrupted Leng Shiqi and said, I don't care about the fight for power. I'll return to the main pavilion and become an outer sect elder. You, on the other hand, should be more careful in the future. Me? Leng Shiqi was a little confused. Yes, in fact, even if you didn't have an accident this time, the general pavilion would transfer me back sooner or later. Then they would definitely send that person to succeed the position of pavilion leader. The more Leng Shiqi listened, the more confused he became. However, he was also keenly aware that all these changes seemed to be related to him. So he asked, who will it be? Feng Shamo. Guoju's tone became a little dignified. Leng Shiqi was very strange to hear this name. He didn't know who it was at all. Guoju explained, this person is the chief prodisciple of the pavilion leader. His cultivation has just entered the gang spirit realm. He deserves to be the leader of his generation of disciples. The chief prodisciple of the pavilion leader. Leng Shiqi's heart skipped a beat. At this time, he thought of another person, Yushu. Yushu was also the disciple of the pavilion leader. That was to say, the trusted pavilion leader of Donglin County was very likely to be Yushu's senior fellow apprentice. Guoju continued, Feng Shamo is arrogant and unruly. He thinks highly of himself and acts decisively and ruthlessly. Although his cultivation has just entered the gang spirit realm, his combat capability is comparable to the middle stage of the gang spirit realm. In fact, such a person is not suitable to be the pavilion leader of the branch, but the pavilion leader will definitely send him here. Leng Shiqi, you have to remember that you can't be too close to Feng Shamo or too distant from him. You have to control the degree. Hearing this, Leng Shiqi knew that Guoju's words were more profound. He vaguely felt that he seemed to be inexplicably in an undercurrent. He nodded and said, thank you for your advice, pavilion leader. Well, that's all I have to say. You can leave now. Leng Shiqi immediately bowed and left. After coming out of the pavilion leader, he was full of worries. He thought that he could avoid the internal disputes of the sect by coming to the branch in Donglin County, but he didn't expect that an invisible storm had already formed around him. But he couldn't do anything, which made him very uncomfortable. Phew. Leng Shiqi couldn't help but sigh and spit out all the depression in his heart. He quickly adjusted his mentality and walked to the square. When he came to the branch for the first time, he didn't pay much attention to it. At this time, he looked carefully and found that there were hundreds of black-clothed killers in the square, all of whom were spirit cultivators in the spirit transformation realm. In addition, there were more than 20 blood-clothed killers, all of whom were masters in the 4 realms of celestial being. The weakest one was in the spiritual pulse realm. And most of the killers were performing tasks outside. Eugenia was a deacon elder in the Heavenly Cloud Tower, but she was only a blood-clothed killer in the blood-clothed pavilion. At this moment, Leng Shiqi finally realized the power and horror of the blood-clothed pavilion. Just this branch alone was comparable to a second-rate force. Leng Shiqi then walked to a desk, took out Bao Pengyi's head, and handed it to a gray-clothed disciple opposite him. He said, 2-star mission, assassinate the leader of the Shangyang City's 3 Swords Gang, Bao Pengyi. He was here to hand in the mission, which had been delayed for nearly a month. It was finally time to hand in the mission. Fortunately, Bao Pengyi's head had been stored in the system space and showed no signs of decay. Otherwise, even if it was stored in the mustard seed bag, there would be some changes after so long. The gray-clothed disciple took the head and took out a thick book to flip through. After a short while, he took out a red brush and sketched on it, saying, "May I borrow your identity token, sir?" Leng Shiqi took out his identity token and placed it on the desk. The gray-clothed disciple inserted it into a blood-red groove, then took out something similar to a card and swiped it on it. Then, the number 50 appeared on Leng Shiqi's identity token, and finally disappeared into the token. The gray-clothed disciple returned the token with both hands and took out a small package containing spirit transformation pills and spirit stones. He said, "Sir, all your rewards are here." Leng Shiqi nodded and took the package and the token. Then, he returned to his stone room and prepared to study the 9 nether magic pattern. Chapter 177. Leng Shiqi returned to the stone room and began to carefully study the 9 nether mageweth diagram. Using the system's infinite skill points, he was now at the entry level. However, infinite skill points could only allow him to reach the entry level of the technique. He could only rely on himself to comprehend the rest. Currently, Leng Shiqi already possessed 2 high-grade cultivation methods. The other was naturally the 7 fiend blood kill art. Unfortunately, these 2 cultivation methods only had the first 3 levels. However, in this way, there was a comparison between the 2 techniques. After studying for a while, Leng Shiqi found that the 9 nether mageweth diagram seemed to be more applicable than the 7 evil blood technique. He had the first 3 levels of both techniques, but he could now condense the mageweth by practicing the 9 nether mageweth diagram. However, he could not use the characteristics of the 7 evil blood technique. Then, Leng Shiqi began to condense the mageweth according to the technique. He closed his eyes and a faint layer of demonic aura emerged around his body. The demonic aura was still floating. Under the control of Leng Shiqi, the demonic aura gradually gathered and formed a tadpole-like mageweth. The first mageweth was successfully condensed. Leng Shiqi's mind moved and the mageweth continued to wander around his body. He could clearly feel that wherever the mageweth stopped, his strength would be increased. The effect of the increase was not very obvious. It was only about 5%. At this time, Leng Shiqi thought of the countless mageweths that appeared on his body after being possessed by the demon spirit. How many mageweths had he condensed? Therefore, he still had great expectations for the 9 nether mageweth diagram. He immediately began to condense the second mageweth. According to the technique, the spirit transformation realm was the lowest standard to practice this technique. Every time he advanced to a higher level, he could condense 1 more mageweth. In other words, he could condense up to 7 mageweths now. Not long after, Leng Shiqi had successfully condensed the second mageweth. He attached both mageweths to his fist and immediately felt the strength of his fist increase by about 10%. After about 4 hours, Leng Shiqi finally condensed 7 demonic patterns. With all 7 demonic patterns on his fist, his strength had actually increased to 60%. It was already quite extraordinary. Unfortunately, the Leng Shiqi consumed a lot of spiritual energy to maintain 7 mageweths at the same time, so it could only be used at critical moments. Even so, he was already very satisfied. He murmured, if I were to use the beast origin battle pattern and the demonic pattern at the same time, how much stronger would I be? At this moment, he also remembered that when he was possessed by the demon spirit, he had also done the same thing. He remembered that at that time, he had easily defeated the spirit pulse stage Yujinyu. He even fought 1 against 5 spirit vein stage demonic cultivators. Leng Shiqi longed for that kind of power, but he knew that power could not be obtained overnight, and he could not go astray just to obtain power in a short period of time. Therefore, after condensing the demonic patterns, Leng Shiqi continued to cultivate and recuperate. On the 3rd day, his injuries were more or less healed, but there was quite a commotion outside the stone room. Leng Shiqi walked out of the stone room with a hint of doubt. When he walked to the square, he saw 2 people talking in the center of the square, while the others were standing far away. One of them was the pavilion's grand pavilion leader, Guiju. The other person was wearing a blood-red robe with golden patterns, and there were 3 patterns on his mask that looked like wind and blade marks. Even though no one could see his face, they could feel the obvious arrogance coming from him. Then, this person's identity was obvious. Leng Shiqi thought to himself, is he Feng Shamo? He came so quickly. He still remembered that when he and Fan Jingchu came here from the general pavilion, it took them 7 or 8 days even if they traveled day and night. But this Feng Shamo had arrived in just 3 days. Guiju said with a mocking tone, Martial nephew Feng came really quickly. Feng Shamo's voice sounded a little low, and he replied, I just happened to be nearby. And he spoke to Guiju without the slightest respect for his martial uncle, which made the others a little dissatisfied. Guiju had been the Grand Pavilion leader of the Donglin County branch for many years, and most of the assassins here were promoted by him. They were all in awe of Guiju. Guizhu said casually, since Marshal Nephew Feng is here, then the Donglin County branch will be handed over to you from now on. This is the Grand Pavilion Leader's seal. After he finished speaking, a small dark gray box suddenly appeared in his palm. Feng Shamo took the small box without hesitation, weighed it in his hand, and put it away in his mustard seed bag. He said, Marshal Uncle Guizhu, do you have anything else to say? Hearing this, even Leng Shiqi couldn't help but frown. Feng Shamo, you've lost everyone's trust. Guizhu was his martial uncle, and he had been in charge of the Donglin County branch for many years. Now that he had been ordered to leave after handing over the Grand Pavilion Leader's seal, it left an impression in the hearts of others that he was arrogant and unreasonable. This wasn't good for him to smoothly take over the Donglin County branch. However, he didn't think Feng Shamo was wrong. Perhaps Feng Shamo just came to the branch to pave the way for his future. He didn't really want to manage the branch. Guizhu didn't care too much about Feng Shamo's words. Instead, he said earnestly, you can find Gaian and Taiying for important matters in the branch. They can be your right-hand men. Got it, Feng Shamo said impatiently. Then, Guizhu looked around and glanced at everyone. He paused on Leng Shiqi for a moment before he turned and left. Immediately, many people wanted to see him off, but Guizhu said, go do your own things. Everyone had to stop, but their hearts were filled with mixed feelings. At this moment, Feng Shamo said loudly, I, Feng Shamo, will be the Grand Pavilion Leader of the Donglin County branch from now on. The rules of the branch will remain the same. What you do now or in the future, I won't care. There's only one rule, I only want obedient people. A silver-striped blood-clothed assassin came up and said, Grand Pavilion Leader, there's something I can't. However, before he could finish his sentence, Feng Shamo drew a long and narrow spirit saber out of nowhere and slashed at him. That sword slashed out a light green sword aura that was dozens of feet long. There were also countless wind blades on the blade aura. No one expected Feng Shamo to attack, and they all quickly retreated in shock. The silver-striped blood-clothed assassin was even more flustered. In a hurry, his body lit up with dozens of star-like light spots. However, before the light spots could bloom, he was completely swallowed by the green sword aura. Feng Shamo, the new pavilion leader, had actually killed a Spirit Aperture Realm silver-striped blood-clothed assassin in one strike. The reason was because he said one more thing. Chapter 178. In the pavilion square, everyone stared blankly at the silver-striped blood-clothed assassin lying on the ground. That was a master of the Spirit Aperture Realm. He was a master of the Supreme Power Realm who could open a sect. But he was killed by his own man. You just need to listen to what I say. Also, I don't want to say the same thing twice. Gather here at noon tomorrow. After saying this coldly, Feng Shamo walked straight into the room that only the head of the pavilion could stay in. But before he left, he glanced at Leng Shiqi faintly. After Feng Shamo left, the square was still deathly silent. At this moment, although everyone was dumbfounded, they all had different thoughts. Some people were afraid of Feng Shamo's cruelty. As the head of the pavilion branch, he killed his fellow disciple. This was a big taboo in the sect. But they all knew that Feng Shamo was the direct disciple of the head of the pavilion, and one of the candidates for the position of the head of the pavilion in the future. Who could control him? Some people were shocked by Feng Shamo's strength. The man who was killed was a master of the Spirit Aperture Realm, and Feng Shamo had just entered the Gang Spirit Realm. Logically speaking, it was acceptable for him to be killed after a fierce fight. However, that person was killed in a single strike. This caused everyone to be horrified. Some people were amazed by Feng Shamo's means. For example, Leng Shiqi. He had this thought at the moment. Since Feng Shamo entered the pavilion branch, he had always given people a feeling of superiority. Even Ghost Ju, who used to be one of the 9 Netherworld blood-clothed assassins, who had been in charge of the Donglin County branch for more than 10 years, and whose seniority was frighteningly high, was nothing in his eyes. But then, he suddenly attacked and killed a master of the spirit aperture realm with lightning speed, which directly shocked everyone. He was using this method to tell everyone that strength was the most important thing. His way of doing might be unreasonable and incomprehensible in some people's eyes, but in Ling Shiqi's eyes, his means were very brilliant. Not to mention other things, from now on, no one in the pavilion branch would dare to disobey his orders. That was enough for him. Then, Ling Shiqi didn't care about what the others thought. He went back to his stone room and practiced even harder. Feng Shamo's appearance made Ling Shiqi feel an indescribable pressure. He had to raise his strength at all times. At noon the next day, except for those who were still out on missions, all the disciples gathered in the square. Ling Shiqi blended into the crowd of assassins and looked around. At this moment, there were more than 300 true disciples here. About 70% of them were black-clothed assassins, and there were dozens of blood-clothed assassins. Most of them were black-striped blood-clothed assassins at the Spirit Pulse stage. Not long after, Feng Shamo walked over, accompanied by 2 golden-striped blood-red clothed assassins, Guyan and Taiying. Today, I will only say one thing. The branch has already accepted a 7-star mission. Feng Shamo said straightforwardly. A 7-star mission? When everyone heard this, huge waves rose in their hearts, but no one dared to say a single word. This Feng Shamo was currently in the middle of a new official's life, and they didn't want to be unlucky and lose their lives. Ling Shiqi couldn't help but be moved. He was clear about the missions in the blood-clothed pavilion. As a black-clothed assassin, he could only accept 1-star and 2-star missions. The black-striped blood-red clothed assassins could accept 3-star and 4-star missions, and so on. In other words, only golden-striped blood-red clothed assassins could accept a 7-star mission. However, this type of mission had always been rare. For example, the 2 golden-striped blood-red clothed assassins, Guyan and Taiying, hadn't accepted a mission in a long time. Thus, they had been helping the pavilion leader manage the affairs of the branch. This Feng Shamo just came yesterday, and he already has a 7-star mission today. How can it be so coincidental? Besides, what does a 7-star mission have to do with us? Ling Shiqi was very confused. Not only him, but almost everyone had the same doubts. Feng Shamo continued, this mission is very unusual. Even a golden-striped blood-red clothed assassin can hardly complete it alone, so it will be a group mission. Ling Shiqi finally understood why Feng Shamo called everyone together, but he was more confused about what kind of mission could not be completed by a golden-striped blood-red clothed assassin in Gang Spirit Realm alone. How could they get involved in such a mission? Feng Shamo didn't keep them guessing and said directly, this mission is to destroy the third-rate force in Donglin County, Golden Wing Academy. Hiss. Even though everyone was restraining themselves from speaking, they couldn't help but suck in a breath of cold air when they heard this. This was the first time they had heard of a mission to destroy a sect. Then, who could have such financial resources to invite the blood-clothed pavilion to destroy a third-rate sect? At this time, Ling Shiqi finally knew Feng Shamo's intention. Although Golden Wing Academy was only a third-rate sect, it must have many disciples. Not to mention a golden-striped blood-red clothed assassin, even a ghostly blood-red clothed assassin might not be able to complete this mission. After all, there were so many people in a force. They were not fools who would stand there and let you kill them. As long as they fled in all directions, even a great master in oneness of heaven and man realm could not kill them all. So this time, a large number of assassins had to work together to complete the mission. Gu Yan, you tell me the list of those who will participate in this mission. Feng Shamo said to Gu Yan next to him. Gu Yan nodded and took 2 steps forward with a booklet. Everyone else stared at the booklet eagerly, hoping that their names would be on it. As a third-rate sect, Golden Wing Academy was not weak, but the strength of the branch in Donglin County was stronger. Moreover, these assassins were best at killing skills. Their combat effectiveness was superior among the spirit cultivators of the same level. It was not a big problem for them to destroy Golden Wing Academy. Therefore, as long as they could participate, they would be people who had completed a 7-star mission. It could be said that they were plated with a layer of real gold. Gu Yan called out one name after another, and everyone who was called out stood in front. When he called out the 2 words, "Icy Death," Ling Shiqi could not help but turn his head to look. Icy Death's figure looked very thin, and on the mask was a scene of an ice prison. This Bing Shang's reputation was quite high in the branch pavilion. His most shocking achievement was that he had assassinated the Tang clan's genius, Tang Heyu. Because of this, he had attracted Tang Haoqing, causing Ling Shiqi to be seriously injured. However, Ling Shiqi did not have any complaints. He just looked at them with pure interest. As the names were called out one by one, hundreds of people had gathered in front of the square. Gu Yan also called out the last name, Ling Shiqi. Chapter 179. Golden Wing Academy was quite famous in Donglin County. It was not because of its strength, but because it was not only a spiritual cultivation sect, but also an academy. In Golden Wing Academy, in addition to its own spiritual cultivation disciples, there would be lectures every day. Therefore, there had been a large number of scholars gathering for a long time. In particular, Golden Wing Academy would hold a lecture on scriptures every year, which would attract many scholars and officials to come and watch. Not only that, even some of the spiritual cultivation sects around would send some disciples to support the scene. Today, the annual lecture on scriptures of Golden Wing Academy would begin again. All forces and students gathered here. In a forest more than 10 miles away from Golden Wing Academy, there were hundreds of murderous blood-robed pavilion killers hiding. This group assassination mission was led by Feng Shamo in person, but Gu Yan and Taiying did not follow. Among the remaining killers, there were 2 silver-striped blood-robed killers and more than a dozen black-striped blood-robed killers. The rest were all black-robed killers. With such a lineup, it was not a big problem to destroy Golden Wing Academy, but it was still a little difficult to completely destroy it. However, if Feng Shamo, a master of Gang's spirit realm, was added, it would not be a problem. Ling Shiqi was meditating in the crowd with his eyes closed. Along the way, he had been thinking about a question. Why did Feng Shamo choose to carry out the mission during the lecture on scriptures? Although all the disciples of Golden Wing Academy could gather on this day, there were also a large number of disciples of spiritual cultivation sections. If they interfered, should he kill them or not? Furthermore, from the looks of it, Feng Shamo seemed to want to fight his way in. It should be known that Blood-Robed Pavilion was a force of assassins. Although these disciples had rich killing skills, they were better at assassination. If they could find a suitable opportunity, they could even make Golden Wing Academy disappear silently. Such an open and above-board attack was not in line with their usual style. Not only Ling Shiqi had such doubts, but others also had such doubts. However, Feng Shamo's killing power was too strong, and no one dared to ask. Not long after, a few figures quickly disappeared into the forest. They came to Feng Shamo and whispered something to him. Feng Shamo immediately emitted a cold killing intent and said, "The time has come." At this time, the scholars and spirit cultivators of the Golden Wing Academy were coming and going. The dean of the academy, He Liangkai, was greeting the guests with a face full of glory. "Dean He, it's been a long time since we last met. After listening to Dean's lecture, I felt as if I was enlightened and benefited greatly. You flatter me, Brother Wang is too kind. Dean He is too modest." At this time, a clear voice came from the entrance of the academy. "Flying Tiger City's City Lord Liao has arrived." Brother Wang, please wait for a moment. I will go and welcome City Lord Liao. I won't disturb you any longer. Dean He, please. Sect Leader Du of Heavenly Cloud Tower has arrived. Luo Yu Manor's Manor Lord Luo has arrived. Grandmaster Lu of the Hao Yi sect has arrived. 3 consecutive reports came from the gate. The originally lively Golden Wing Academy suddenly quieted down for a moment, and then burst into an uproar. Did the doorman make a mistake, or did I hear it wrong? You didn't hear wrongly, the leaders of the 3 spirit cultivator sects have come personally. Haha, it seems that the status of us scholars is rising steadily. The Golden Wing Academy has too much face. Even the dean of the academy, He Liangkai, was stunned for a moment. In the past, the 3 sects would also send people to participate in the discussion, but those who came were only disciples who came to broaden their horizons. But today, the leaders of the 3 sects had all come. The status of these 3 people was not lower than He Liangkai's. Spirit light flashed under his feet, and he directly went to the gate to welcome them at the fastest speed. He Liangkai cupped his fists and said, "The 3 of you have come together really brings light to my small courtyard. Please come in." The arrival of these 3 people pushed the atmosphere in the academy to its peak. Everyone was talking loudly, and from time to time, a few poems would appear, winning applause. He Liangkai welcomed the 3 sect leaders into the main hall to take a seat. Along the way, he also sensed that the 3 of them did not seem to have come purely to study the scriptures, because their expressions were always a little gloomy. Logically speaking, to be able to become the leader of a spirit cultivator sect, not showing one's emotions was the most basic requirement. But these 3 people all looked like this, so it could be seen that something big had happened. The leader of the Heavenly Cloud Tower, Du Mingxian, was the first to speak. "Dean He, the 3 of us have indeed come here to discuss other matters." When He Liangkai heard this, he secretly thought that it was indeed so. He made a "please" gesture and said, "I'm all ears." The 3 of them coming together could be said to have given enough face to the Golden Wing Academy, and also made the academy's reputation soar, so he had to give enough face to them. Just as Du Mingxian was about to speak, the doorman's voice came from the door. "The elder of Mountain of Books, Elder Li has arrived." Whoosh! He Liangkai suddenly stood up. Not only him, but Du Mingxian and the other 2 also stood up. He Liangkai looked at the 3 of them with a slightly troubled expression. Luo Xiuwu, the master of the Fallen Feather Manor, said, "Since the elder of Mountain of Books has arrived, Dean he should go and welcome him first, so as not to neglect him." He Liangkai said, "Please wait for a moment. I'm really impolite." After He Liangkai walked out, Du Mingxian and the others sat down and said, "I didn't expect the elder of Mountain of Books to come. He Liangkai is really influential." Luo Xiuwen added, "I've long heard that He Liangkai has a good relationship with the elder of Mountain of Books, but I didn't expect it to be true." At this time, Lu Yi, the master of the Howie sect, said in a low voice, "It's good that he's here. If he can draw the elder of Mountain of Books in, the 5 evil cultivators will definitely be unable to escape." The elder of Mountain of Books, Li Jianyuan, was a casual cultivator in Donglin County, but even the masters of third-class sects like Du Mingxian had to bow their heads to him, because the elder of Mountain of Books cultivation was in the gang spirit realm. Casual cultivators had always been disliked by spiritual cultivation sects, but casual cultivators in the gang spirit realm were still respected by them. This was what strength meant. Soon, He Liangkai and a gray-haired old man came over. Du Mingxian and the other 2 also stood up to welcome them. At the same time, at the gate of the Golden Wing Academy, a man in a blood-red robe with golden stripes and a mask on his face appeared. Before the doorman approached him, he felt cold all over, but he still asked, "May I know your name, so that I can report it?" The man put his hands behind his back and said proudly, "Feng Shemo, a gold-striped killer in blood-red robe of the Blood-Red Robe Pavilion, the head of the sub-pavilion in Donglin County. I'm here to pay you a visit." His voice was not directed at the doorman. Instead, it spread to every corner of the academy. Upon hearing this, everyone's faces were filled with astonishment. Chapter 180. For those who came to attend the Golden Wing Academy, today was a feast for the eyes. First, the leaders of 3 spirit cultivation sects came together, and then the elder of Mountain of Books, who was in the gang spirit realm, came, which already surprised them. But the arrival of Feng Shamo made them feel surprised instead of happy. The blood-robed pavilion was one of the top forces in the world, one of the top 7 forces in the world. Although the Golden Wing Academy was also a spirit cultivation sect, it was completely different from the blood-robed pavilion. And the person who came was the leader of the pavilion in Donglin County. In terms of identity, people like He Liangkai were not even qualified to see him. It should have been a great joy for such a figure to come in person. But what kind of sect was the blood-robed pavilion? It was the most powerful killer force in the Thunderfire dynasty and even in the entire Falling Star continent. What could happen when the blood-robed pavilion came? Could it be that they came to attend the discussion of scriptures? Everyone's hearts skipped a beat. The sudden appearance of Feng Shamo cast a shadow over their hearts. This was the deterrent power of a top force. The expressions of several people in the main hall of the academy suddenly changed, and confusion appeared in their eyes. Especially He Liangkai, he really couldn't figure out what the blood-robed pavilion wanted to do. But in short, it was nothing good. Du Mingxian and the other two also had an ominous feeling. At this time, the elder of Mountain of Books said, "Since there are distinguished guests, why don't we go to greet them together?" He Liangkai looked at the elder of Mountain of Books gratefully. Although the elder of Mountain of Books was far inferior to Feng Shamo, his realm was the same. Moreover, the elder of Mountain of Books had been in the gang spirit realm for many years. With him here, he had the confidence to face Feng Shamo. And he also called Du Mingxian and the other two. In addition, the leaders of the three spirit cultivation sects were here. Even the blood-robed pavilion could not go too far. When He Liangkai, the elder of Mountain of Books, and Du Mingxian arrived at the gate, there were already hundreds of people gathered here, but the scene was very quiet. When He Liangkai saw Feng Shamo for the first time, his heart quivered, because he clearly felt the killing intent from Feng Shamo. In other words, Feng Shamo was simply releasing his killing intent openly. Shrouded by the killing intent of a master of Gang's spirit realm, the people present dared not to breathe. He Liangkai walked forward and asked carefully, "Great pavilion leader, please forgive me for not going out to welcome you." He Liangkai could be said to have lowered himself to the lowest level, but Feng Shamo didn't give him any face at all. He said, "Forgive? Then you can atone for your crimes with your death." Hearing this, He Liangkai's face immediately sank. The large group of people behind him also opened their mouths, but none of them dared to say anything. He Liangkai suppressed the anger and uneasiness in his heart and said, "Today is the Golden Wing Academy Scripture Study Conference. You must be here to participate in this event." "That's right. I'm here to participate in the grand meeting. However, it's not your grand meeting. It's mine. A grand meeting of slaughter." As soon as Feng Shamo's voice fell, figures suddenly leaped out from the top of the wall of the Golden Wing Academy. Each of them stared at the disciples of the Golden Wing Academy with unfriendly gazes. The people of the Golden Wing Academy were very easy to recognize. They were all wearing white robes with a pair of faint golden wings on their backs. The moment these people appeared, the expressions of everyone in the academy changed. There was no need to think too much. Looking at the masked people, everyone knew that they were the assassins of the Blood Cloth Pavilion. Moreover, among the 100 or so people, the weakest was at the late stage of the spirit transformation realm. This is the strength of a branch of the Blood Cloth Pavilion? He Liangkai was horrified when he saw this. He pretended to be calm and asked, "Great pavilion leader, what is the meaning of this?" However, Feng Shamo didn't answer him. What answered him was Feng Shamo's blade. Feng Shamo waved his blade 3 times in a row, and 3 giant blades of wind shot out. The blades of wind cut through the air and directly tore through the sky toward He Liangkai. How could He Liangkai have expected Feng Shamo to suddenly attack? However, just as the blades of wind were about to reach him, a palm appeared before him. This palm was extremely withered, but it contained a majestic power. With a slap of the palm, Black Spirit Gang surged out and crushed the 3 blades of wind. The one who attacked was the old man of Mountain of Books, Li Jianyuan. The old man of Mountain of Books said seriously, "Young man, why are you so arrogant? This is the Blood Cloth Pavilion's business." "Unrelated people, leave," Feng Shamo said coldly. The old man of Mountain of Books shook his head and said, I have always admired Dean He. The Golden Wing Academy has always been generous and has helped countless scholars. It can be said that they have accumulated boundless virtue. The Blood Cloth Pavilion is not afraid of killing people by doing this. Feng Sha Mo sneered, what a good old man of Mountain of Books. Are you going to protect the Golden Wing Academy today? Young man, you have just entered the Spirit Gang realm and have yet to condense the true Spirit Gang. The old man of Mountain of Books said. His meaning was also very clear. With him here, he could completely stop Feng Sha Mo. Moreover, behind him were Du Mingxian and the other two Spirit Aperture Realm experts, as well as disciples of other sections. As long as these people worked together, they wouldn't be afraid of the Blood Cloth Pavilion. However, the old man of Mountain of Books was taking it for granted. At this time, the Blood Cloth assassins on the wall shouted in unison, the Blood Cloth Pavilion will only kill the people of the Golden Wing Academy. Everyone else, leave quickly to avoid an unexpected disaster. As soon as these words came out, what made the old man of Mountain of Books' heart turn cold was that all the outsiders in the academy scattered at the fastest speed. Even Du Mingxian and the other two silently retreated. Obviously, they didn't want, or rather, didn't dare to get involved in the Blood Cloth Pavilion's affairs. When He Liangkai saw this scene, his heart instantly sank to the bottom of the valley. Those who usually called him brothers, those who respected him, had all abandoned him at this moment. At this moment, he finally understood the coldness of human nature. Feng Sha Mo laughed and said, Old man of Mountain of Books, I will use you to test my saber. Immediately, Feng Sha Mo slashed out with his saber. Suddenly, a sharp wind power erupted and attacked the old man of Mountain of Books. The other Blood Cloth Pavilion assassins also jumped off the wall and rushed into the crowd of the Golden Wing Academy. There were two Spirit Aperture Realm experts in the Golden Wing Academy. One was naturally He Liangkai, and the other was the elder of the library, Duan Jiming. This time, the Blood Cloth Pavilion also sent two Spirit Aperture Realm assassins. One of them, Duya, went against He Liangkai, while the other, Bat Yi, went against Duan Jiming. In addition, there were also 8 Spirit Pulse Realm cultivators in the academy. They were all stopped by the Blood Cloth assassins of the same realm. The remaining few Blood Cloth assassins and Black Cloth assassins rushed into the crowd of low-level disciples of the Golden Wing Academy. There were hundreds of disciples in the academy, but there were only a few dozen Spirit Transformation Realm cultivators. The rest were all in the Pure Spirit Realm and the Spirit Assembly Realm. Moreover, they usually cultivated or played with words. How could they be a match for the assassins who had experienced countless battles? For a moment, the entire Golden Wing Academy was covered in blood. Chapter 181. At this moment, Ling Shiqi waved his spirit saber, sending out hundreds of saber shadows that shrouded the two Spirit Transformation Realm disciples of the academy. Both of them were at the middle stage of the Spirit Transformation Realm, but he still had the upper hand. Ling Shiqi didn't even use his full strength. In his spare time, he observed the situation of the others. First, it was Feng Shamo. Feng Shamo and the old man of Mountain of Books were both masters of the Spirit Gang realm. The power of their attacks was simply terrifying. The gate of the academy had already been destroyed by them, and no one dared to approach within a radius of several hundred feet around them. Ling Shiqi had never seen a fight between Spirit Gang realm cultivators, so he couldn't understand what was going on. Feng Shamo and the old man of Mountain of Books attacked so fast that Ling Shiqi couldn't even see how they attacked. He could only see the cyan saber light and the black shadow of the palm from a distance. In fact, the old man of Mountain of Books was the most surprised of all. He clearly knew that Feng Shamo had just entered the Spirit Gang realm and hadn't even fully condensed his Spirit Gang. To be precise, Feng Shamo wasn't at the first level of the Spirit Gang realm. As for himself, he had entered the Spirit Gang realm more than 10 years ago and was now at the 3rd level of the Spirit Gang realm. However, he was evenly matched with Feng Shamo. Although the old man of Mountain of Books admitted that his chi and blood had begun to decline and was no longer at his peak, it shouldn't be this bad. He couldn't help but feel a little unwilling. This was the huge gap between a rogue cultivator and a disciple of a big sect. Then, Ling Shiqi looked at the place where He Liangkai and the others were fighting. Whether it was He Liangkai or Duan Jiming, they were completely suppressed by Duya and Bat Yi. As for those below the Spirit Pulse realm, it was a massacre. Ling Shiqi analyzed the situation and found that the most important thing was not Feng Shamo. The battle between Feng Shamo and the old man of Mountain of Books wouldn't end in a short time, and others couldn't interfere. Although they had the upper hand, He Liangkai and Duan Jiming had been in charge of the Golden Wing Academy for so many years, so they must have some trump cards. They didn't dare to kill too much, for fear that they would die together. The key point was the remaining black-striped blood-clothed assassins and black-clothed assassins. As long as they quickly dealt with the low-level disciples of the Academy, they would be able to come back and assist in the battle between the Spirit Vein Realm cultivators. As long as they killed a few Spirit Vein Realm cultivators, they would be able to surround and kill He Liangkai and Duan Jiming. As long as the two of them died, the mission would be completed. Thinking of this, Ling Shiqi stopped playing with the two people in front of him. Suddenly, a dark magic pattern appeared on his body. The magic pattern moved and attached to his spirit saber. He had enhanced the power of the spirit saber with the devil veins. Then he used the floating spirit steps and moved like a ghost. With a few moves, he easily killed 2 disciples of the Academy at the Spirit Transformation Realm. Then he killed his way into the crowd. There were also a few blood-red assassins here. Soon, all of the Spirit Transformation Realm disciples were slaughtered. Thus, the few blood-clothed assassins immediately surrounded the Spirit Pulse stage cultivators of the Academy, while the rest of the black-clothed assassins chased after the pure Spirit stage and Spirit Assembly stage disciples like wolves in a flock of sheep. The entire battle immediately leaned towards the Blood Robe Pavilion. He Liangkai realized that if this continued, they would definitely be exterminated. Thus, he shouted, "Run! Run as far as you can!" Since even the dean had said so, many people immediately tried to escape. However, there were even more assassins who chased after them. Moreover, wherever the fleeing people passed, they would not give way to the onlookers. In the end, they would still be killed by the assassins. It was not that they were unwilling to give way, but they did not dare to. Once they gave way, if they were killed by the Blood Robe Pavilion's assassins, how could they reason with them? When He Liangkai saw his disciples being slaughtered and his so-called friends not even giving way, his face was filled with grief and indignation. He immediately swallowed a pitch-black pill. The aura of his body began to surge, reaching the peak of the Spirit Aperture Realm. Dia was suppressed in an instant, but he still mocked, "Dean, he has always been noble and virtuous. In the end, you actually used the methods of a demonic cultivator to fight against the enemy. How laughable." He Liangkai's face was already distorted beyond recognition. He only wanted to kill Duya now. He exerted his cultivation of the peak of the Spirit Aperture Realm to the extreme and used the Golden Wing Academy's unique skill, the Golden Wing Heaven-Breaking Hand. Both of his arms turned golden, and several crystal-clear spirit veins and spirit apertures appeared on his arms. His hands flew, and hundreds of hand shadows submerged Duya. Duya used a dagger that looked like the teeth of a demonic beast. Facing He Liangkai's fierce moves, he could only retreat. He also knew that He Liangkai could not maintain this state for a long time. As long as he could drag it out, it would be fine. At this time, Ling Shiqi caught up with a pure spirit realm disciple who was running away and killed him without any suspense. Then he looked around. In this short period of time, most of the low-level disciples of the Academy had been killed. There were also some black-clothed assassins who went to besiege the Spirit Vein Realm cultivators of the Academy. Just as Ling Shiqi was about to go to help, 6 people jumped into the Academy. One of them shouted, "Stop!" As soon as he finished speaking, he was stopped by the young girl next to him. She whispered, "Don't make trouble. This is not a place where we can intervene." The assassins of the Blood Cloak Pavilion ignored the young man's words and were still chasing the disciples of the Academy. Ling Shiqi leisurely looked at the 6 people, 5 men and 1 woman. They were all in their 20s, but their cultivation was not low. The 5 youths were all in the spirit transformation realm. Some were in the middle stage, and some were in the late stage. The most powerful one was the girl. She was actually in the spirit vein realm. Looking at her appearance, she was only in her 20s, but she had the cultivation of the spirit vein realm. It could be seen that her identity was not simple. The girl immediately raised her voice and said, "I am Tang Wanxiu, a member of the Tang family of Donglin County. I have no intention of interfering in your affairs." After she finished speaking, the young man who was stopped by her was unhappy and said, "Cousin, the people of the Blood Cloak Pavilion seriously injured Uncle some time ago. How can we stand by and do nothing? Let me go up and teach them a lesson." "Tang Hapu, shut up!" Tang Wanxiu shouted. You, a concubine's daughter, dare to speak to me like this? So what if your cultivation is high? In the future, I will inherit." Before Tang Hapu could finish his words, Tang Wanxiu covered his mouth. However, the young man's voice was heard by Feng Shamo. His mouth moved, and his voice clearly spread to every corner of the academy. The Tang family is so powerful. Disciples of the Blood Cloak Pavilion, listen up. Whoever kills a disciple of the Tang family will receive double the reward for this mission. Whoever kills Tang Wanxiu or Tang Hapu will receive 10 times the reward. Ling Shiqi immediately grasped the hilt of his saber. Chapter 182. Tang Wanxiu was the daughter of a concubine of the Tang family in Donglin County, but her cultivation talent was extremely high. Previously, she was ranked 2nd in the Tang family, second only to Tang Heyu. After Tang Heyu was assassinated by Bing Shang, Tang Wanxiu was pushed out to be the face of the Tang family. A large amount of resources were poured into her, but her cultivation was still stuck at the peak of the spirit transformation realm. For the sake of the Tang family's reputation, the upper echelons of the Tang family actually used external items to forcefully help Tang Wanxiu break through to the spirit vein realm. This was equivalent to destroying her cultivation future. However, the upper echelons of the Tang family didn't care. As long as Tang Wanxiu could support the Tang family for a period of time, they would nurture an even younger generation. For example, Tang Hapu. Tang Hapu was the son of the Tang family's patriarch. He was only 14 years old this year, but his cultivation was already at the late stage of the spirit transformation realm. This cultivation speed was even faster than the genius disciples of the Mountain Sea sect. He was the only direct descendant of the Tang family's younger generation. In the future, the position of patriarch would very likely fall on him. The youth's success made Tang Hapu a little complacent. If he was a little arrogant in the Tang family, it would be fine, but now that he was outside and still looked down on everyone, it was a little stupid. This time, the Tang family had asked Tang Wanxiu to bring Tang Hapu out to travel specifically for others to see. Look, although the Tang family has lost Tang Heyu, they still have Tang Wanxiu and Tang Hapu. The Tang family doesn't lack geniuses. After they came out, they heard that the Golden Wing Academy was going to hold a discussion and that there would definitely be a large number of spirit cultivators gathered. It was also a good opportunity for them to show their faces, so they rushed over. However, on the way, Tang Hapu saw a lot of injustice and insisted on helping out. They were delayed for a while, so they were late. When Tang Wanxiu saw that the Blood Robe Pavilion was actually washing the Golden Wing Academy with blood, she was glad that they were late. However, she didn't expect that Tang Hapu would actually help out again. Previously, people were afraid of the Tang family and didn't bother with Tang Hapu, which made him even more arrogant. Now, he didn't even put the Blood Robe Pavilion in his eyes. Thus, the scene just now appeared. After Tang Wanxiu heard Feng Shamo's words, her pretty face became gloomy. She couldn't believe that the Blood Robe Pavilion would attack them. However, not many of the assassins from the blood-robed pavilion came over. The blood-clothed assassins were currently surrounding and killing the Spirit Pulse Realm cultivators of the Golden Wing Academy. The black-clothed assassins were no match for Tang Wanxiu. In the end, only two figures rushed over. These two were Bing Shang and Leng Shiqi. Bing Shang came directly in front of Tang Wanxiu. Her body emitted a faint chill as she looked at her coldly. When Tang Wanxiu saw Bing Shang, she immediately recognized him. She said in a deep voice, "You are Bing Shang, the assassin who killed Tang Heyu." Bing Shang's voice was as cold as ice. "That's right. Tang Heyu died at my hands. You will die the same way." Then, Bing Shang clenched his fists, and cold air quickly condensed into a ferocious ice fist. Tang Wanxiu exclaimed, "Spirit caster?" It wasn't just him, even Leng Shiqi couldn't help but look at Bing Shang a few more times. He had come here purely for the 10 times the reward that Feng Sha Mo had mentioned. Since Bing Shang had targeted Tang Wanxiu, Leng Shiqi naturally went for Tang Hepu. However, when he rushed over, he saw Bing Shang make a move. He had never seen Bing Shang make a move before, so he didn't know that he was a spirit caster. When Leng Shiqi saw Bing Shang's method of condensing ice into a weapon, his heart moved. He thought to himself, he might not be a pure spirit caster. Maybe he's like me, using spirit techniques as a support method. As expected, Bing Shang immediately charged forward and started fighting with Tang Wanxiu. Tang Wanxiu used a sword and her sword techniques were exquisite. However, Bing Shang's methods were even more peculiar and strange. You didn't know when he would use spirit techniques, making it impossible to guard against. Leng Shiqi watched their battle and realized something. At this time, Tang Hepu's voice sounded. "You, a small black-clothed assassin, dare to kill me? You dare to ignore me? You don't know life from death." Leng Shiqi withdrew his gaze and looked at Tang Hepu. He also didn't understand. They were both raised by the Tang family, but Tang Hepu's temperament was much worse than Tang Wanxiu's. If it wasn't for him shouting, how could Feng Sha Mo have noticed them? Leng Shiqi didn't think too much about this. What he needed to do now was to kill Tang Hepu. Not only did he want the 10 times reward, but he also wanted to take revenge for Tang Haoqing's punch. Seeing Leng Shiqi walk over with killing intent, the 4 spirit transformation realm guards beside Tang Hepu all stood before him. Leng Shiqi pulled out his spirit sword. In a situation where he was outnumbered, it was more appropriate to use a sword technique. With a shake of his spirit sword, 5 streaks of invisible sword chi surged out in succession. Tang Hepu revealed a look of disdain when facing the invisible sword energies. He took out a light green longsword from his mustard seed bag. This longsword seemed to be made from a piece of jade. Tang Hepu gently waved the longsword in his hand and easily shattered the unblocking meridian sword energies. As for the other 4 people, they also used their own methods and weren't hit by the unblocking meridian sword energies. However, when they looked over, Leng Shiqi was nowhere to be seen. One of the 4 guards suddenly felt a chill behind him. He quickly turned around and saw a ray of sword energy stabbing toward him. The man immediately turned pale with fright and shouted, "Save me!" Only then did the others react and quickly block. However, just as Leng Shiqi's sword energy was about to reach them, Tang Hepu arrived first. The jade sword in Tang Hepu's hand released a gentle light, but it made Leng Shiqi feel a sense of danger. Leng Shiqi's mind moved and 7 demonic patterns climbed onto the body of the spirit sword. He still stabbed at Tang Hepu. The 2 swords collided and the sound of metal clashing echoed. There was even the sound of something breaking. Leng Shiqi's pupils dilated slightly because an obvious crack had appeared on his spirit sword. The spirit sword in his hand was a level 3 spirit sword strengthened by an enhancement talisman on Blood Mist Island. It could be said that it had been with Leng Shiqi for a long time and had been through hundreds of battles. It was already a little damaged. However, he had specially added 7 demonic patterns just now. Even so, it was almost destroyed. Leng Shiqi glanced at Tang Hepu's jade sword and thought, that sword is at least a level 4 spirit sword. It's even better than my scimitar. When Tang Hepu saw Leng Shiqi's spirit sword crack, he grinned and said, "In front of my jade sword, you dare to use that piece of scrap metal to kill me? You dare to provoke me? Let's kill him together. The other 4 people immediately besieged Ling Shiqi. A black fog rose under Ling Shiqi's feet, and he used spirit steps to dodge the attacks. He said indifferently, I want this sword. Chapter 183. Speaking of which, Ling Shiqi could no longer fully display his strength with a level 3 spirit sword. This was also the reason why he often used a sword. Originally, he had planned to earn some spirit stones and blood droplets to exchange for a tier 4 spirit sword. Now, Tang He-pu had delivered a spirit sword to him in the blink of an eye. It was as if someone had delivered a pillow to him just when he was about to doze off. Ling Shiqi's left palm lit up with a faint starlight, then a burst of cold air surged under his feet and spread out. Ice spread. The turbulent cold air enveloped Tang He-pu and the others. The cold air formed a layer of ice crystals on their bodies. Only Tang He-pu's jade spirit chi made the cold air unable to gather. However, this was enough. In the next moment, Ling Shiqi pointed his spiritual sword, and suddenly, 12 phantoms appeared. Each of the phantoms used a different sword style, and each of them had a different sword chi, which dazzled the eyes. In an instant, the sword light flashed and the sword chi was everywhere. Tang He-pu's expression finally changed at this time. The jade sword in his hand spun and formed a sword curtain in front of him. After 2 breaths, all the phantoms disappeared and Ling Shiqi's figure appeared behind the 5 people. Among the 5 people, 3 people fell to the ground with a plop and never got up again. The remaining 2 people were Tang He-pu and the person standing next to him. Tang He-pu's forehead had unknowingly exuded layers of cold sweat. Just now, he really felt the arrival of death. If his jade sword was not level 4 upper grade and blocked all the sword light and sword chi, he would not be far from death. However, Ling Shiqi would not give them time to breathe. He put away his sword and a purple light bloomed on the blade. Tang He-pu felt the killing intent coming from behind him and hurriedly crushed a jade pendant on his waist. At the same time, Ling Shiqi also waved out a destructive half-moon purple light. It was so dazzling in the clear sky. The purple moon blade light cut through the sky and slashed towards Tang He-mu. After Tang He-mu crushed the jade pendant projected a faint silhouette. The figure was very blurry and looked like an old man, but the aura emitted by the figure made Ling Shiqi tremble. And the figure seemed to have a real consciousness. When he saw Ling Shiqi waving the purple moon blade, he immediately shouted, "Who dares to touch my Tang family? How dare you?" Under the shadow's roar, Ling Shiqi's saber light started to twist, and the sharpness of the saber light dissipated a little. Ling Shiqi was shocked, but he did not back down and still held his blade. The shadow stretched out a finger and pointed lightly. A light blue finger force shot out and shattered Ling Shiqi's half-moon rapid light slash. What was even more frightening was that the finger did not stop and continued to shoot towards Ling Shiqi. Ling Shiqi's body moved continuously, and he had to shift a few times before he was able to dodge the finger force. The finger force hit a rockery behind him, and in an instant, the rockery shattered into pieces. That finger energy had such terrifying power. However, Ling Shiqi also noticed that after shooting that finger energy, the figure became fainter. Tang He-pu took the opportunity to run, and his speed was not slow. Of course, Ling Shiqi could not let Tang He-pu escape. He directly sank into the ground and wanted to go around the figure to chase after Tang He-pu. But what he didn't expect was that the shadow lightly pointed again, and a finger force that was even thicker than the previous one penetrated the ground and shot towards Ling Shiqi without any delay. Ling Shiqi did not expect his aura to be locked. At this time, he was underground and could not use spirit steps, putting himself in danger. He could only use the hand of the earth to harden the soil, but the effect was minimal. At the same time, he took out his 3-part spear and charged towards the finger energy. With a muffled explosion, Ling Shiqi's figure broke out of the ground. His entire body was covered in a layer of silver-white soft armor, but his right arm was dripping with blood. At the most critical moment, he activated the silver-scaled fire-armored crocodile's armor and sacrificed his three-part spear to escape. Ling Shiqi returned to the ground, and the figure finally disappeared. His eyes focused as he stared at Tang Hepu, who had already run away. Then, a ball of demonic energy appeared in Ling Shiqi's left hand, and the demonic energy quickly condensed into 2 throwing knives. This was the first move of the demonic weapon manual, demonic weapon condensation. If this move was cultivated to perfection, it could condense a demonic weapon that was as sharp as a level 3 spiritual weapon. Of course, it was only very sharp. The demonic weapon condensed did not have the corresponding hardness and could only be used to attack. But even so, it was already very powerful, especially for Ling Shiqi. He had a level 3 spiritual skill, devouring light throwing knives, but throwing knives and hidden weapons were very rare, and he had to spend spiritual stones to buy them. Now that he had the demonic weapon manual, he could make up for this. Ling Shiqi quickly condensed 2 throwing knives with his demonic energy. Then, with a shake of his wrist, the throwing knives immediately shot out. Along the way, the throwing knives continued to absorb the surrounding spirit energy, and even the light was sucked in, becoming as dark as ink. Tang Hepu also heard the sound behind him. Although he was panicking, he did not dare to turn around. At this time, he could only shout to Tang Wanxiu, "Save me! Save me!" Unfortunately, Tang Wanxiu's cultivation was forcefully broken through by external forces, and she did not have much battle experience. She had always been suppressed by Bing Shang. She could not even protect herself, so how could she care about him? As for the other Tang family disciple, even if he wanted to save him, it was too late. After the devouring light-throwing knives shot out, Ling Shiqi also used floating spirit steps to the extreme, quickly rushing towards Tang Hepu. Seeing that no one was coming to save him, Tang Hepu gritted his teeth and forced out a few drops of essence blood from his fingertips. Essence blood was the most important blood in a spirit cultivator's body. Generally speaking, the amount of essence blood was related to the strength of a spirit cultivator's body. Essence blood was extremely important, and once it was lost, it would be very difficult to make up for it. Right now, Tang Hepu was at his wit's end, and could only use his essence blood to fight for his life. His essence blood dripped onto the unadorned jade sword, and the originally jade-colored sword instantly turned blood red. Tang Hepu suddenly turned around with the blood-red sword in his hand. Following that, several blood-red sword auras fell, breaking the 2 devouring light-throwing knives. However, Tang Hepu was not feeling well either. At this moment, his face was pale without a trace of blood, and he was panting heavily, as if the few things just now had exhausted his blood and spirit energy. What was even more terrifying was that although he broke the devouring light-throwing knives, Ling Shiqi was coming at him again. Ling Shiqi's figure was as fast as the wind, and was only a few steps slower than the devouring light-throwing knives. From afar, his left hand turned into a pitch-black ghost claw. It was the ghost jade claw that he had not used in a long time. Following that, he opened his 5 claws, and demonic qi appeared around him. Demonic qi and baleful qi all gathered on his ghost claw, forming a 5-meter-tall ghost claw image. 4th level spirit technique, Earth Fiend Demon Shadow Claw. The ghost claw tore through the air, bringing with it an ear-piercing sound. Tang Hepu still wanted to struggle, but just as the Earth Fiend Demon Shadow Claw approached, a wave of baleful qi entered his body. His brain was invaded by the baleful qi, and he immediately became delirious, unable to use any techniques. The demon claw descended, and suddenly, blood spurted out, flesh and blood splattered everywhere. Ling Shiqi caught the jade sword with his right hand and pulled off the mustard seed bag on Tang Hepu's body, and muttered, "I already said, this sword, I want it." Chapter 184. Tang Hepu had been killed by Ling Shiqi in a short period of time. Even after using his trump card, he was still killed. This scene naturally fell into the eyes of all the cultivators who had come to participate in the discussion. Originally, they thought that the Blood Cloth Pavilion would not make a move against the Tang family. However, not only did they make a move, but the Tang family's direct descendant, Tang Hapu, had also been killed. Some people in the crowd also recognized the figure that had appeared. It was the current head of the Tang family, Tang Haoquang, an expert at the Unity of Heaven realm. No one knew what method Tang Haoquang had used to attach a portion of his spirit force to the jade pendant. The power of his 2 fingers was comparable to the strongest attack of an early-stage spirit pulse realm cultivator. Even so, Tang Hapu had still been killed by a black-clothed assassin. This caused everyone to be stunned. If it had been the blood-cloth assassin who had killed Tang Hapu, it would have been fine, but it was only a black-clothed assassin at the spirit transformation realm. Moreover, in terms of cultivation, the black-clothed assassin and Tang Hapu were both at the 7th layer of the spirit transformation realm, but the difference in their combat strength was like heaven and earth. In addition, the black-clothed assassin's spirit techniques were more exquisite than the last. Not only was he proficient in sword techniques, blade techniques, and ghost claws, but he was also proficient in hidden weapons. He had even cultivated spirit techniques. This was not what shocked them the most. What shocked them the most was that the black-clothed assassin had actually dared to kill Tang Hapu. Moreover, he had used such a cruel method to leave him without a complete corpse. There were many people here who could kill Tang Hapu, but even if Tang Hapu was standing there with his head held high, they wouldn't dare to kill him. This was because Tang Hapu was a direct descendant of the Tang family. This was the deterrence of identity. Who is this black-clothed assassin? He actually dared to kill Tang Hapu. Is this a disciple raised by a top force? Too powerful. This child will definitely be someone special in the future. He, a direct descendant of the Tang family, died at the hands of the Blood Cloth Pavilion. This will be a good show to watch. It should be said that he died at the hands of the Blood Cloth Pavilion again. The Tang family has become more and more powerful in recent years. They deserve it. That's right. The Tang clan has lost 2 good seedlings in a row. I'm afraid they won't be able to replace the yellow. While everyone was discussing in low voices, Tang Wanqiu naturally saw the tragic deaths of Tang and Pu. Her heart immediately sank to the bottom. She was the main person in charge of this trip, so she naturally had to bear the responsibility. Now that Tang Hapu was dead, even if she escaped back home, she would have to face severe punishment from her family. Bing Shang threw out a few punches, and each punch carried a bone-piercing chill. Tang Wanqiu made a strange movement. She placed her spiritual sword horizontally in front of her chest, and then actually shattered her own spiritual sword. Immediately after, the fragments of the spirit sword fell down like rain, shattering Icy Death's fist shadow and continuing to shoot forward without losing any momentum. Bing Shang clasped her hands together and a large amount of cold air condensed into an ice shield in front of her to block the spirit sword fragments. However, Tang Wanqiu took advantage of this time to emit a faint layer of blood aura all over her body. Her speed soared as she flipped over the wall of the Golden Wing Academy to escape. Bing Shang didn't seem to be good at speed. After hesitating for a moment, she didn't chase after her. At this time, Ling Shiqi had also killed the last Tang clan disciple and collected all their heads. These were all merits and resources. Bing Shang walked to Ling Shiqi and asked, "You also cultivate cold air?" Ling Shiqi didn't deny it and nodded. Naturally, he couldn't escape Bing Shang's eyes when he used ice spread. "Let's spar when we have time." After Bing Shang finished speaking, she directly rushed to another spiritual pulse realm cultivator of the Golden Wing Academy. Ling Shiqi secretly raised his eyebrows. He had never come into contact with Bing Shang, but from these 2 sentences, she seemed to be a cultivation maniac. Next, he looked around. At this time, almost all the low-level disciples of the Golden Wing Academy were dead, and cold corpses could be seen everywhere. In the spiritual pulse realm, there were only 3 people left in the academy who were struggling to hold on, but it seemed that it wouldn't take long for them to become corpses. As for He Liangkai, because he used his trump card, he firmly suppressed Duya. However, Duya was extremely slippery and didn't fight with He Liangkai head-on at all. He only suffered a small injury. However, several blood-clothed assassins rushed over to help. He Liangcai's road to defeat was doomed. Leng Shiqi suddenly felt a little embarrassed. Because he couldn't intervene in the battle of the four realms of heaven, and the low-level disciples of the Golden Wing Academy were all dead. He didn't know what to do. He looked at the other black-clothed assassins who had gathered and surrounded He Liangcai and Duan Jiming. However, they didn't dare to go forward, just to prevent the two from escaping. Leng Shiqi also walked over and then looked at the battle outside the academy gate. It was the battle between Feng Shamo and the old man of Mountain of Books. The two of them had already destroyed the magnificent gate of the Golden Wing Academy. Feng Shamo's blade power was sharp, and the old man of Mountain of Books' attack was majestic. No one dared to approach the place where the two of them were fighting. Leng Shiqi quietly opened his supercilious eyes. He wanted to observe the battle of the masters of Gang's spirit realm more clearly. The battle between Feng Shamo and the old man of Mountain of Books seemed to be evenly matched. However, the more it was so, the more uncomfortable the old man of Books felt. He had a feeling that his decades of cultivation were in vain. Gradually, his heart was filled with all kinds of complicated emotions, which finally turned into hatred. He hated those high and mighty spirit cultivation sections. He hated those geniuses who had low cultivation but were arrogant because of their noble status. He hated that Feng Shamo, who was not half as old as him and whose cultivation was not as good as his, could be evenly matched with him. When he saw that the disciples of the Golden Wing Academy were basically slaughtered and his good friend He Liangcai almost died, he hated Feng Shamo and the blood-clothed pavilion even more. Ah! The old man of Books' face unconsciously became a little ferocious, and a very thin black gas appeared between his eyebrows. Seeing this, Feng Shamo gave a strange smile. Then, he waved his saber casually. There was no terrifying saber light or surging saber aura. It was just a very ordinary saber. However, when this extremely ordinary saber came, a surge of hatred suddenly burst out, which instantly aroused the hatred of the old man of Books. The two waves of hatred mixed together, which instantly covered the old man of Books' eyes with a layer of black fog. He stood there in a daze, letting Feng Shamo chop off his head. The old man of Books Li Jianyuan, who was at the third level of Gang's spirit realm, was killed by Feng Shamo. Thousands of onlookers exclaimed one after another. When Feng Shamo walked in with the old man of Books' head, the crowd quickly quieted down. When He Liangcai saw this scene, his mentality collapsed instantly. He lost his mind, and Dia would not let go of this opportunity. His whole body turned into a black line and pierced through He Liangcai's heart, directly penetrating a fist-sized bloody hole. At the same time, the elder of the library Duan Jiming was also killed by the other blood-clothed assassins. At this point, the Golden Wing Academy was completely annihilated. Then, Feng Shamo waved his hand, and a group of assassins quickly plundered all kinds of resources of the Golden Wing Academy. Then, they retreated like a tide, leaving the crowd still in a daze. The Golden Wing Academy was gone just like that. Chapter 185. The blood-robed pavilion openly exterminated the Golden Wing Academy and left with all the Academy's resources. The thousands of people who had come to participate in the discussion of scriptures could only watch helplessly. At the beginning, Feng Shamo and the elder of Mountain of Books fought at the gate, so they couldn't leave. Although they could also jump over the wall, when they found that the killers of the blood-robed pavilion only targeted the Academy disciples, they didn't run away. They just stood there and watched. They watched the killers of the blood-robed pavilion slaughter the Academy disciples. They watched He Liangcai get killed. They watched the blood-robed pavilion plunder the resources of the Golden Wing Academy. Among these people, there were either relatives or friends of the Academy disciples, or they were inextricably linked to the Golden Wing Academy. And there were many Spirit Pulse Realm cultivators among them. There were also Spirit Aperture Realm experts like Du Mingxian, Luo Xiuwu, and Lu Yi. If they joined hands, more than half of the killers of the blood-robed pavilion would die here today. However, they didn't make a move. Instead, the elder of Mountain of Books, a rogue cultivator, made a move, and he was killed by Feng Shamo on the spot. The reason was none other than that they didn't dare to provoke the blood-robed pavilion, a top force. The Tang family dared to provoke them, but in the end, their son was killed, and the new genius Tang Wanqiu narrowly escaped death. Even the Tang family, a first-rate force, was not taken seriously by the blood-robed pavilion, let alone people like them. At this point, the Golden Wing Academy would be removed from the world, and they could only sigh. Alas, where can we scholars settle down from now on? I don't know who the Golden Wing Academy offended. Someone actually dared to invite the blood-robed pavilion to exterminate them. Who knows? A spirit cultivation sect is gone just like that. Today is the first day of the discussion, but in the end, it became the day of extermination. The blood-robed pavilion is indeed a top force in the world. This is just a branch, but it can easily exterminate the Golden Wing Academy. The gap between sects is huge. Look at the genius Tang Hapu of the Tang family. Even after using such a terrifying trump card, he still died in the hands of the black-robed killer. And the elder of Mountain of Books, it is said that he was at the 3rd level of the spirit astral realm, but he also died in the hands of Feng Shamo, who just entered the spirit astral realm. A top force is indeed a top force. It's too high to reach. When this matter spreads out, the blood-robed pavilion will definitely become famous in Donglin County. Then, the crowd left the golden-winged academy that had been soaked in blood. Some of them were chatting happily, some of them were walking expressionlessly, and some of them looked gloomy. For example, Du Mingxian, Luo Xiuwu, and Lu Yi. The 3 of them had come here to join forces with the Golden Wing Academy to fight against the evil cultivators. Before Lu Luqing died, he had deliberately marked the aura of the 5 evil cultivators. As long as they used the formation, they could roughly locate them. However, the 3 families did not have the confidence to kill him. It was not only because he had the 5 ghost demon corpses, but also because they were afraid of his background. If they wanted to make a move, they had to eliminate all of them, so they wanted to join forces with the other spirit cultivator sects. However, he didn't expect that his first trip would be so unfavorable. Not only was it unfavorable, but he also brought bad luck upon himself. Seeing the Golden Wing Academy being destroyed by the Blood Cloak Pavilion so easily, they felt very uncomfortable. It wasn't because of the Golden Wing Academy, but a feeling of inferiority. In the eyes of those rogue cultivators, they could be said to be bright and beautiful. They were a dignified spirit cultivator sect. However, only they knew that although they were a spirit cultivator sect, they were a 3rd-rate sect at the bottom. Above them, there were still 2nd-rate sects, 1st-rate sects, and those high and mighty top forces on the world sect ranking. Facing these forces, they had no choice but to lower their heads. Just like today, when the Blood Cloak Pavilion appeared, they tacitly retreated, and they retreated very straightforwardly. Giving in had already become their habit. But they didn't like this feeling. Now that they saw the Golden Wing Academy being destroyed with their own eyes, they were all thinking that one day in the future, would their respective sects also be destroyed like this? Du Mingxuan's face darkened as he said, Brother Lu, what do you think about today's matter? Luo Xiuwu replied, what can I think? The Golden Wing Academy offended someone they shouldn't have offended. Sooner or later, there will be this calamity. I heard that He Liangkai has been close to a prince of the empire recently. Do you think it has something to do with this? Lu Yi finally said. A strange look flashed across Du Mingxuan's eyes as he said, a small Golden Wing Academy dares to get involved in the internal strife of the empire. They deserve such an outcome. A small Golden Wing Academy? Then aren't we the same? Lu Yi sighed slightly. As soon as he said that, the other 2's expressions turned even uglier. Luo Xiuwu said, forget it, we've made a wasted trip today. Let's think about how to deal with the demonic cultivators. My brother's death must be avenged. Lu Yi also said seriously, that's right. Actually, if the 3 of us personally take action, I'm sure they won't be able to escape. Lu Yi's hatred for Su Lu and the other demonic cultivators was no less than Luo Shuwu's. His Hao Yi sect had spent countless resources to nurture an array master, but he died just like that. How could Lu Yi let it go? Du Mingxian said, to be on the safe side, we'd better unite with one or two more forces, especially those who hate the demonic cultivators to the core. That's right. Fortunately, the mark Lu Leking left on the demonic cultivators before his death can last for a long time. We don't have to be too hasty. Then, the three went directly to the next force. As for the others, after leaving the Golden Wing Academy, the news that the blood-robed pavilion destroyed the Golden Wing Academy in an instant spread out rapidly as if it had grown wings. Everyone who heard the news turned pale with fright. In Donglin County, it had been a long time since a spirit cultivation sect was destroyed. The name of the blood-robed pavilion suddenly became the most famous sect in Donglin County. In addition, the two most interesting things were about Feng Shamo and Leng Shiqi. Feng Shamo killed the elder of Book Mountain, a famous master in Gang's spirit realm, in front of everyone, which shocked everyone and made everyone know that the new head of the branch was not simple. After some people investigated it, they knew that Feng Shamo was actually the chief personal disciple of the master of the blood-robed pavilion. The master of the blood-robed pavilion put his chief personal disciple in Donglin County. What he wanted to do became the topic of many people's gossip. As for the other person, it was Leng Shiqi. He successively used exquisite swordsmanship, saber skills and demonic cultivation. After resisting Tang Haoquang's shadow, he still killed Tang Hapu, which also shocked everyone. Chapter 186. The destruction of the Golden Wing Academy. To rogue cultivators, the spirit cultivator sect, which was unreachable in their eyes, was destroyed so casually. This somewhat subverted their understanding. As for those sects that were also third-rate forces, they were all treading on thin ice. They were afraid of provoking someone and following in the footsteps of the Golden Wing Academy. However, for the second-rate and first-rate sects, this matter only slightly surprised them because if they took action, they could also destroy the Golden Wing Academy. However, it was completely different for the Tang family. Some time ago, their eldest son, Tang Heyu, the hope of the family's future revival, died in the hands of Bing Shang of the Blood Garment Pavilion. This time, the second son, Tang Hapu, died in the hands of the Blood Garment Pavilion's assassins again. It could be said that the Blood Garment Pavilion had cut off the foundation of the Tang family for the next few decades. As for Tang Wanxiu, the concubine's daughter who relied on external objects to forcefully break through to the spiritual pulse realm, she had never been taken seriously by the Tang family's higher-ups. At this point, the Tang family had to face the fact that they were short of manpower, which suddenly pulled them from heaven to hell. Therefore, the Tang family urgently gathered all the higher-ups to discuss this matter. Some said that they wanted to suppress the Blood Garment Pavilion, while others said that they wanted a stable transition. The two sides quarreled fiercely. The assassins of the Blood Garment Pavilion who caused all this had long returned to the pavilion and quickly returned to their normal lives. For example, Leng Shiqi immediately went into his stone room after returning. Firstly, he was cultivating, and secondly, he was healing the injury on his right arm. At this moment, his entire right arm was shrouded in a faint layer of demonic aura. The demonic aura seemed to be eroding the flesh on his arm, but in the blink of an eye, the flesh and blood were reborn again. Leng Shiqi gritted his teeth and did not make a sound. He was using the 9 Nether Mageweth diagram to heal his injury. This way, not only could he heal quickly, but he could also temper the strength of his right arm. It could be said that he killed 2 birds with 1 stone. Otherwise, pain was inevitable. Fortunately, Leng Shiqi's willpower was strong enough now, so he could completely accept this degree of pain. This continued for more than half a day, and the wound on his right arm had basically healed, but there were still some scars left behind. Leng Shiqi finished his cultivation and put on his clothes. Then, he began to recall the last strike Feng Shamo had used to kill the old man of books. When he activated the supercilious eye, he clearly saw that the spiritual energy in the old man of books' body was completely normal. However, he couldn't understand why the old man of books would stand still and let Feng Shemo chop off his head. Ling Shiqi suddenly remembered that there was an indescribable aura at that time. It was not spiritual energy or momentum, but more like some kind of emotion. However, he was too far away to know what it was. After thinking for a long time, Ling Shiqi shook his head with a headache and said to himself, "Alas, Gang's spirit realm is too far away for me. Now I'm not even in the celestial being 4 realms. If I spy on the battle between Gang's spirit realm experts, I'll be overestimating myself. Who is it?" Just as Ling Shiqi was pondering, he suddenly felt a sense of danger. He roared and turned around with his sword in hand. However, there was no one behind him. To his horror, a voice sounded, "You're quite alert." Hearing this voice, Ling Shiqi was shocked. He was not only surprised by how the person came in, but also surprised by why the person came to him. However, he also put down the jade sword in his hand, because the owner of this voice was the head of the sub-pavilion, Feng Shemo. Disciple Ling Shiqi pays his respects to the head of the sub-pavilion. Ling Shiqi bowed and said. Feng Shemo's figure appeared in front of Ling Shiqi strangely. With his hands behind his back, he said, "I'm here to ask you something." Ling Shiqi replied, "I'll tell you everything I know." "You, how dare you kill a disciple of the Tang family?" Feng Shemo said in a meaningful tone. Countless thoughts flashed through Ling Shiqi's mind. He immediately said, "I dare not disobey the head of the sub-pavilion." Feng Shemo turned his head in surprise and said, well done. I appreciate you more and more." "I dare not." "Okay, let's get down to business. I'm here to fulfill my promise." Ling Shiqi's heart skipped a beat when he heard this. Back then, he had wanted to kill Tang Hepu because of the 10 times reward that Feng Shamo had mentioned. After everyone returned, everyone who participated in the mission was rewarded according to their contributions. Only Ling Shiqi hadn't received his reward. However, he didn't expect Feng Shemo to come to him, and it seemed like he came secretly. Feng Shemo raised 3 fingers and said, "I've said before that the reward for killing a disciple of the Tang family will be doubled, and the reward for killing Tang Hepu will be 10 times. Not only did you kill Tang Hepu, but you also killed 4 disciples of the Tang family. After thinking about it, I've decided to give you 3 rewards. First, give me your identity token." Ling Shiqi took out his identity token. He already knew what Feng Shemo was going to give him. It was definitely a drop of blood, but he didn't know how much it would be. Feng Shemo also took out his own identity token. With a swipe of his finger, the number 1000 was drawn into Ling Shiqi's identity token, 1000 drops of blood. Ling Shiqi exclaimed in his heart. He had only received 50 drops of blood from assassinating Bao Pengyi. In other words, this was equivalent to 22 star missions. Feng Shemo said, "You participated in the mission to destroy the Golden Wing Academy. You could have received 50 drops of blood, but I've rounded it up for you. Thank you, Grand Pavilion Leader." Ling Shiqi thanked him sincerely. Now, he knew how precious the drop of blood was. Not only could it be exchanged for various cultivation resources, but it could also be used to buy a higher-level cultivation room. At the same time, it was necessary to become a blood cloak assassin. It could be said that the drop of blood was the most precious thing in the blood cloak pavilion. This is only the first reward. The second is this. Feng Shemo said as he took out a small transparent bottle. There was a drop of sparkling red liquid in the bottle. Although the liquid was sealed in the small bottle, Ling Shiqi could feel the pure spiritual energy in it. This is the saliva of a 1000-year-old black tortoise. It has been refined by blood refining. This drop of saliva contains more spiritual energy than a dozen spiritual transformation pills. Moreover, the spiritual energy in it is extremely pure. After refining it, there won't be any hidden dangers in cultivation. After hearing this, Ling Shiqi couldn't help but be moved. According to what Feng Shemo said, This drop of saliva essence's spiritual energy was comparable to a dozen spiritual transformation pills, but its value was more precious than a dozen spiritual transformation pills. Especially after refining this drop of saliva essence, there wouldn't be any hidden dangers. This was definitely a high-level treasure. Chapter 187. Leng Shiqi was also surprised that Feng Shamo would take out such a high-grade resource like saliva essence. Feng Shamo said, "I should have given you some spirit stones and pills, but I think this might be more suitable for you." Leng Shiqi knew that Feng Shamo was taking care of him, so he said, "I'll remember your kindness." "Okay, I'll remember that. As for the third reward, our pavilion can give you a Tier 4 spirit artifact." "What kind of artifact do you want?" Feng Shamo said. Leng Shiqi thought for a moment. If it was a weapon, he would also want a level 4 spirit spear. However, he suddenly remembered that he lacked a way to defend against Tang Haoquan's attack. In other words, the silver-scaled fire-armored crocodile's beast essence battle patterns were too simple. Therefore, he wanted a defensive spirit weapon. Generally speaking, defensive spirit weapons were more precious than weapons. Thus, after pondering for a moment, he said, "Disciple wants a defense-type spirit artifact." Feng Shamo said, "You sure know how to pick. Fine, you can have this." He took out a small brown umbrella from his mustard seed bag and said, "This is a level 4 spirit weapon, mountain umbrella. Its defense is quite good." Leng Shiqi said a few words of praise and took the umbrella. With this umbrella, it could be said that he made up for his last shortcoming. Although his body wasn't weak, and he had the silver-scaled fire-armored crocodile's beast essence battle patterns, these were all his body's defenses. He could only use his body to take damage as a last resort. Now that he had the mountain umbrella, it was completely different. It was equivalent to having another life-saving method. Feng Shamo had given him a lot of benefits this time. There were large amounts of sect contribution points, treasures to increase cultivation, and defensive spirit weapons to protect his life. Leng Shiqi had suddenly become rich. He was secretly glad that he had exposed some of his strength to kill Tang Hapu. Otherwise, he wouldn't have received such a generous reward. However, when he thought of this, he began to hesitate. Wasn't Feng Shamo's reward a little too good? This inevitably made him suspect that Feng Shamo had other motives. As expected, Feng Shamo had more to say. He continued, "Other than giving you the reward you deserve, the pavilion has something else to tell you." Leng Shiqi knew that things were not that simple, but he still said respectfully, "This disciple is listening. We know who you are, and we also know that you have boundless potential. However, potential is just potential. Take Tang Hapu, who was killed by you. He could be considered a genius, but he still died in the end. Potential is not strength, and your strength is not enough. Our pavilion has a task for you, but you must at least be at the spirit vein stage before you can do it. If you can break through to the spirit vein stage within half a year, the pavilion will give you a great opportunity. If you can't, then that's all you can do." When Leng Shiqi heard this, his eyebrows hidden under the mask couldn't help but twitch. It was mainly because Feng Shamo's words were extremely familiar to him. Because more than a month ago, his cheat master, Wu Xiang, one of the 9 Hades Blood Cloak assassins of the Blood Cloak Pavilion, said something similar. However, Wu Xiang gave him a year's time, while Feng Shamo only gave him half a year. In other words, he had to break through to the Sky Realm within half a year. This way, he could complete the task given by Feng Shamo and Wu Xiang at the same time. However, although it was easy to say, it was extremely difficult to do. Among the countless spirit cultivators, more than 70% of them were blocked outside the gates of the Sky Realm. One could imagine how difficult it was. Leng Shiqi knew that his cultivation talent was considered good, but it was definitely not the best. If he cultivated step by step, with the help of the system, he was confident that he could break through to the spirit vein stage before the age of 20. Tang Heyu of the Tang family broke through to the spirit vein stage at the age of 24 and suppressed all the genius disciples in Donglin County. Leng Shiqi could break through before the age of 20, so he was naturally a genius among geniuses. However, the Blood Cloak Pavilion was not satisfied. Wu Xiang was not satisfied either, and even Feng Shamo was not satisfied. If Leng Shiqi could really fulfill Feng Shamo's request, then it would be the same as stepping into the sky realm at the age of 14. This was simply too shocking. Even Leng Shiqi himself could not believe that he could do it. Feng Shamo seemed to have seen through Leng Shiqi's thoughts and directly said, "In this half a year, you cannot accept any tasks. Whatever you want to do, the pavilion will support you. The pavilion will only see the results in half a year." After that, Leng Shiqi felt a gust of wind blow before him, and then Feng Shamo's figure vanished before his eyes. However, Leng Shiqi did not have the time to be surprised by Feng Shamo's strength. His heart was filled with endless pressure. He was thinking about how to quickly improve his cultivation. Spirit stones and pills were a must. Fortunately, he had swept through the remaining resources of the Triad and Chinko Hall, so he didn't lack them for the time being. It was definitely enough for him to reach the peak of the spirit transformation realm. However, he couldn't take too many pills because every time he swallowed a pill, there would be some dregs left in his body. The amount of dregs was related to the quality of the pill. The higher the quality of the pill, the less dregs there would be. No matter how high quality a pill was, after taking too many, it would gradually block the meridians, causing cultivation to slow down. It would also affect the circulation of spirit force during battle. This was why Leng Shiqi would only take one pill every few days. He was afraid of leaving too much dregs in his body. Aside from spirit stones and pills, there was also the drop of saliva essence in his hand. If Feng Shamo was right, then this drop of saliva essence was equivalent to a dozen spirit transformation realm pills. This would be enough for him to reach the peak of the 7th layer of the spirit transformation realm. What about after that? The only way Leng Shiqi could think of was to refine demonic blood. However, to refine demonic blood, one had to kill demonic beasts. Demonic beasts were very common on the Blood Mist Island, but they were very rare in the Great World. It was impossible to find them in ordinary places. Leng Shiqi began to recall the records of demonic beasts on the continent. There were only 2 places on the continent that had demonic beasts. One was the Northern Wilderness. It was said that there were countless demonic beasts there, but it was far outside of the Thunderfire Dynasty's territory. The other was the demonic Miasma Mountain Range. Part of it was in the Thunderfire Dynasty's territory, and there were many demonic beasts there. It was easy to choose between the 2. Leng Shiqi pondered for a while and decided to go to the demonic Miasma Mountain Range. However, the demonic Miasma Mountain Range was thousands of kilometers away from the eastern Lin County. Just the journey back and forth would take a lot of time. Time was very precious to him right now. It looks like I really have to find Feng Shamo for a solution. Chapter 188. Demonic beasts were very rare in the Falling Star continent. There were even some low-level spirit cultivators who had never seen a demonic beast in their entire lives. There were only 2 places in the Falling Star continent where one could see a large number of demonic beasts. One was the demonic Miasma Mountain Range. This mountain range spanned across the territories of the 3 great empires. With the suppression of the 3 great empires, the demonic Miasma Mountain Range gradually became a good place for spirit cultivators to search for treasures and gain experience. The other place where one could see demonic beasts was the Northern Wilderness. It was said that there were countless demonic beasts hiding there, but because of this, very few people dared to enter the Northern Wilderness. The entrance to the demonic Miasma Mountain Range was in the demon-suppressing town of Yongping County. The demon-suppressing town was a very special city because everyone inside was a spirit cultivator. This was the only town in the Thunderfire Dynasty that only allowed spirit cultivators to enter. This was not discrimination against ordinary people, but every once in a while, the demonic beasts in the demonic miasma mountain range would riot, so this arrangement was for safety reasons. On this day, a short old man with 2 scimitars on his waist walked into the demon-suppressing town with a bag on his back. This person was Leng Shiqi after disguising himself. He specially used 100 drops of blood to exchange for an old man's skin mask. This mask was quite exquisite, and even his eyes were covered, revealing a bit of turbidity. At the same time, he used the breath-restraining technique to lower his cultivation to the 4th level of the spirit transformation realm. 2 days ago, after Feng Sha Mo came to find him, he decided to make a trip to the demonic miasma mountain range. That's right, 2 days ago. Yongping County and Donglin County were thousands of miles apart, but Leng Shiqi only used 2 days to arrive. The reason was because he used the teleportation array in the Donglin County branch. Every branch of the Blood Robe Pavilion had a teleportation array, but under normal circumstances, this teleportation array was used to transmit information and materials, and was rarely used to teleport people. Leng Shiqi was only qualified to use it when Feng Sha Mo opened the back door, and he had to pay an expensive fee. Because the distance was too far, he had to teleport twice from the Donglin County branch to the Yongping County branch. A total of 800 drops of blood and 1,000 spirit stones. Until now, he only had a little more than 100 spirit stones left, which was only enough for his daily cultivation. If he had taken the normal route to get here, it would have taken him at least a month. Just the round trip alone would have taken him 2 months. One had to know that he only had 6 months in total, so he could only use blood drops and spirit stones to buy time. Leng Shiqi walked along the streets and surveyed his surroundings. The most direct impression he got from this city was that it was huge. It was at least 10 times bigger than Upper Sun City. The place was bustling with activity. Every street and shop was packed with people, making the Leng Shiqi truly feel the prosperous atmosphere of spirit cultivation. Other than doing business, almost all of the spirit cultivators in the demon-suppressing demon city came for the demon miasma mountain range. In other words, they hunted demonic beasts for a living. The people here called these spirit cultivators demon hunters. Leng Shiqi could see the corpses of demonic beasts being transported back and forth. There were even a few demonic beasts that were still alive being tied up and carried. He felt that it was a little novel, but the passers-by did not seem to find it strange. However, he also knew his purpose for coming here. He did not want to waste any time and directly walked towards the entrance of the demon miasma mountain range. The entrance of the demon miasma mountain range was very big, but the Thunderblaze dynasty had built a thick wall that was several meters tall at the entrance, sealing off the entire entrance. There was only one gate in the wall that led to the demon miasma mountain range, and in front of the gate was a plaza. When Leng Shiqi arrived, he was immediately stunned. This place could be described as a sea of people. Before he could even get close, he could already hear waves of voices. There were many people setting up stalls on the ground in the plaza, selling necessities and consumables for entering the demon miasma mountain range. There were also demonic beast materials and materials for refining pills and equipment from the demon miasma mountain range. Other than these, there were even more people who were shouting to form teams to hunt demonic beasts. Come, come, come. Those who want to hunt the second-ranked demonic beast, Blackbird Snake, come over. Those who dare to enter the inner region, come over here. Those below the 4th stage of Sky Realm, do not disturb us. Let's go and capture the purple ancient beast. Come quickly, we're only missing one person. Looking at this scene, Leng Shiqi could not help but feel emotional. In his previous life, he had only seen such a scene in the game. Was this not forming a team to hunt demonic beasts? Leng Shiqi thought for a moment and decided to join a team to enter the demon miasma mountain range. Although this would affect his speed of hunting demonic beasts, he was still a newcomer to this place and was unfamiliar with it. Following a team was the fastest way to familiarize himself with this place. Moreover, he could also explore the map while he was at it. Once he had explored the map, he would be able to move around on his own. Leng Shiqi first walked around the plaza and bought some miasma repellent pills. The reason why the Demon Miasma Mountain Range was called the Demon Miasma Mountain Range was because not only were there demonic beasts, there was also miasma. Moreover, the deeper one went into the mountain range, the thicker the miasma would be. Therefore, the miasma repellent pills were a necessity to enter the Demon Miasma Mountain Range. While he was buying the miasma repellent pills, he was also silently looking for a suitable team. He did not have any requirements for the team, but he did have requirements for the target that he wanted to hunt. It would be best if it was a demonic beast that was not slow and liked to run around. That way, he would be able to explore the map even faster. After observing for a while, Leng Shiqi walked toward a man and a woman. The two of them looked to be in their 30s. The man was wearing leather armor and had a burly figure. He was at the 7th layer of the spirit transformation realm. The woman was wearing tight clothes and had an ordinary appearance. She was stroking her hair in boredom and was at the 6th layer of the spirit transformation realm. The middle-aged man would occasionally shout, "Capture the rank 2 silver earth deer." Those at the mid-stage of the spirit transformation realm and above, those with movement techniques will have priority. Just as the middle-aged man finished speaking, a small old man quickly walked through the crowd and did not touch a single person. The small old man stood before the middle-aged man and slowly said, "I wonder if this old man can join." The middle-aged man and the woman looked at each other and nodded. They had seen the scene of Leng Shiqi using his movement technique. Furthermore, his cultivation was at the 4th layer of the spirit transformation realm, which completely met their requirements. Although the 4th layer of the spirit transformation realm was a bit low, they knew that spirit cultivators with low cultivation at this age were very difficult to deal with. This was because these people knew that it would be difficult for their cultivation to improve, so they would spend a lot of time polishing their spirit techniques. Their battle strength was not weak. "I am Cui Jing, and this is my wife, Shi Yanjun. Welcome, old mister." The middle-aged man introduced himself. Leng Shiqi smiled and said, "This old man is Lu Xingji." Chapter 189. After Leng Shiqi successfully joined the team, they started chatting with each other. "I see that old Mr. Lu is quite curious about this place. Could it be that this is old Mr.'s first time in Demon Suppressing City?" Shi Yanjun was a shrewd and meticulous woman. She noticed the occasional flash of curiosity in Leng Shiqi's eyes, but her tone did not have the slightest bit of respect for the old man. Leng Shiqi's heart slightly changed. He thought that this woman was indeed meticulous. However, he did not have to deliberately hide it and replied, "That's right. This old man is already in his twilight years and wants to walk around and see more. I also came here to see the demonic miasma mountain range. So that's how it is. This little girl actually also wants to walk around the Thunderfire dynasty and see all the mountains and rivers." Unfortunately, Shi Yanjun suddenly stopped here because 2 more people were walking over. Leng Shiqi also turned his head and saw 2 young men walking over. One of them had a simple and honest face while the other looked a bit impatient. However, the 2 of them had higher cultivations than the simple and honest young man. They were at the 5th level of the spirit transformation realm while the impatient young man was only at the 4th level. Cui Jing went up to them and the 3 of them began to chat. Leng Shiqi secretly listened and knew that the simple and honest young man was called Huyan Men and the other was called Hongxiang. Although their personalities were very different, the 2 of them carried a faint arrogance in their movements. He guessed that the 2 of them should be disciples of some spirit cultivation sect that came out to gain experience. Since he could see through it, Cui Jing and Shi Yanjun could naturally see through it as well. The 2 of them did not have high cultivations, but since they were from a spirit cultivator sect, their skills should not be bad, so Cui Jing included them in the team. Now, their team had 5 people. Cui Jing said, "The number of people is about right. Let's prepare to set off. This time, our goal is to capture the silver ground deer alive. The silver ground deer is a very vigilant demonic beast. If there is any movement around it, it will immediately run away. Therefore, after finding the silver ground deer, we must not alert it. The team was formed by me, and my cultivation is the highest. After entering the demonic miasma mountain range, you must listen to me. Otherwise, failing the mission is a small matter, but don't lose your life. Finally, in order to cooperate better in the future, everyone should talk about what they are good at. I use a heavy axe and my wife is a spirit caster who specializes in wood-type spirit spells. Ling 17 and the other two glanced at Shi Yanjun in surprise. Clearly, they did not expect her to be a spirit caster. Moreover, she majored in would attribute spirit spells. In a place like the demonic miasma mountain range, where trees and forests were everywhere, she could be said to be like a fish in water. What Ling Shiqi was even more puzzled was that since Shi Yanjun was a spirit caster, it should be easy for her to join a spirit cultivator sect. Even second-rate sects would open their doors to welcome her. Then why was she still rushing about in this dangerous demonic miasma mountain range? Ling Shiqi inadvertently glanced at Cui Jing and thought, could it be because of him? The power of love is truly great. At this moment, the simple and honest youth Huyan Men said, I'm good at fist techniques. Hong Xiang said, I use a sword. Ling Shiqi finally said, this old man is proficient in blade techniques and has dabbled in other things. Hearing Ling Shiqi's words, the other four people weren't surprised. After all, he was already so old, it was reasonable for him to know more things. Cui Jing picked up the large axe beside him and said, okay, I'll give everyone an hour to prepare. Entering the demonic miasma mountain range is no small matter. All of the supplies must be prepared. After an hour, gather here. The few people immediately dispersed. Ling Shiqi walked around nearby and prepared some dry food and water. When he passed by the small stalls, his heart suddenly moved. It was said that in a place like this, there would always be some amazing treasures hidden and sold as ordinary things. Ling Shiqi didn't think that he had any old man to help him, but he had the system. Ling Shiqi casually walked to a stall and picked up a rank 2 monster core. Suddenly, a system prompt appeared in front of him that only he could see. The value is 22 system coins. Do you want to sell? No. Of course, Ling Shiqi couldn't take other people's things in front of him. Then, he picked up another rank 1 spiritual weapon. The value is 13 system coins. Do you want to sell? No. Ling Shiqi picked up one item after another, but there was nothing special about them according to the system's notification. When the stall owner saw that Ling Shiqi was still dissatisfied after going through all his things, he said angrily, if you want to buy, then buy. If you don't want to buy, then leave. Ling Shiqi touched his nose a little awkwardly, then walked to the next stall. Anyway, there was still plenty of time. He could still look around. However, after looking at dozens of stalls, Ling Shiqi still didn't find anything. Just as the appointed time was approaching, a line of words suddenly appeared in front of Ling Shiqi's eyes. The value is 273 system coins. Do you want to sell? Ling Shiqi's eyes lit up. He carefully looked at the black stone in his hand, but he couldn't see anything special about it. He directly asked the stall owner, what is this? Are you selling it? The stall owner was a young man in his 20s. Seeing that someone was interested in the item, he was about to fabricate an earth-shattering story. However, Ling Shiqi interrupted him and said, that's right. Young man, this old man has walked more roads than you have bridges. Don't make up stories. The stall owner immediately smiled and said, old man, I didn't say anything. You can't accuse me. This old man has important things to do. I can't be bothered to talk nonsense with you. I'll take it for 1,000. What? 1,000? The stall owner was naturally unwilling. The main currency in Jinyao town was spirit stones. Ordinary gold and silver were not very useful here. Ling Shiqi made an impatient expression and said, young man, don't be greedy. You earned 1,000 for free. Otherwise, you can keep it to eat dust. The stall owner was still a little hesitant. Ling Shiqi was most afraid that the stall owner would think too much. Once the stall owner thought carefully, he might realize that something was wrong. So, Ling Shiqi directly took out 1,000 silver notes and put it on the stall. Then, he picked up the stone and left. Before the stall owner could react, Ling Shiqi turned and left. He opened his mouth and was about to call Ling Shiqi back, but when he saw the money in front of him, he closed his mouth and put it away. It would be a waste if he didn't earn 1,000. Ling Shiqi saw that the stall owner didn't call him back. He immediately quickened his pace and returned to the meeting place. When he arrived, the others were already there. He nodded to them as a greeting. Cui Jing carried a large bag and a heavy axe and shouted, "Let's go." You're tuning in to the Romantic Tales YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.